Christmas, and today some hardware hacking and job stuff too, if we get around to it. We're also going to take all of your questions. So if you got some interesting questions you wanted to ask anybody on here, just drop them in chat and we'll try to hit them as quick as possible. And I guess with that, I just want to say hello and thanks everybody for coming out here. Oh, and if you're watching, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. It helps and makes a big difference. All right, so yeah, thanks Andrew, Yorai, and Dave for being here. How's everybody's Christmas been going, or holiday time? You guys been having a good time? We had a little bit of talk about this, but been going good?
Fantastic.
Not enough time to code. Too many family things.
Yeah.
You find yourself just wanting to get back to the office and like go finish a project or work on some code that you were doing before you had to leave for the holiday events and stuff?
Yeah, can't even put a decent IDE on my Android phone because I have to be social.
Have to talk to people. Yeah, I still struggle with it. Like even like during Christmas, stuff going on, I'll get ideas and I have to like run in and like either write a little comment in my code or add something to my Milanote board, or as soon as they took a nap, I started working again and I started just writing code. Like kids are napping, I'm going to start cleaning up my office and writing some more code and wiring some things up. So I'm with you.
Yeah. They're like, you sending messages, Christmas messages to people? I'm like, no, I'm adding things to Trello.
You got to automate those Christmas messages, Dave. That's the thing. You just get it so that on the day you just hit a button and the messages just all go out.
Leave it to the wife. That's the automation.
That's a pretty good automation. It reacts to problems faster.
The life hack here is to make the heaviest code that you can and run it early. So while you have to socialize, it runs like a million permutations of something you don't need. And then you come back and see the results that are probably bugged.
Yeah. How about you, Andrew?
I had a great time with some family. Again, I also I've got a whole week off and I'm thinking this is great. But then I'm going visiting friends here, visiting friends there, doing this other thing there. I'm like, oh shoot, I got a week off, but I feel like I need more time. But
to get more work done on your week off?
To get more coding and work done. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough when you like to code and you like to make stuff, and especially when you got a game you're working on like you are. I imagine the draws are like constantly to just get in and finish working on the next feature or finish adding the next character or whatever the thing is. What are you working on that now, by the way? You tell everybody what your most recent thing is you've been doing there?
My most recent thing is conditions. I added conditions. I'd been working on magic spells at the level of just being able to cast it on the players. So that in this game, the players have 4 portraits at the bottom of the screen. Those are your players. And you can cast a spell on them, a little buff or whatnot. And it's really cool. Shows a little, particles over the portrait, stuff like that. So the characters will respond and react and be lively and all that. But I didn't have the actual effect. Like, I could heal a character, but I couldn't add a buff and actually have it change their stats. So I had to build a condition system. And I decided that was worthy of an update to the game modules bundle that I put on the asset store, which is basically all the data systems that I've been building for the game. And so I spent the last few weeks doing that. So that got finished last week. I finished is always going to be in quotes because I'm sure there's way more I can add to it. In fact, in my head, I'm like, there's one thing I want to add now too. But anyways, we'll see if I'll do that now or later. But so that's the most recent thing. After adding that to the game, I haven't yet gotten back into it. Instead, I'm now playing with these stone blocks that my illustrious modeler Kyle has produced, because I was inspired by New World and their use of stone blocks to make levels. And I was like, that's interesting. Can we do that? So I've been making stone blocks now. And we'll see how that goes. It looks really cool so far. And then I've been playing with shaders because, of course, it's a rabbit hole. And so now I'm playing with shaders to make the stone blocks look really good from up close and far away, and always keep them like sort of up. So there's like ground stuff and yeah.
Right linear.
So yes, it's a rabbit hole, and I'm learning a lot.
Sorry, Fred Planner.
Do you see that happen a lot when you play new games? Like you jump in and find something cool in there, and then you want to pull it into your own game and pull it into your own projects?
I do. I don't play that many games, and maybe this is probably a good thing. because when I do play a game, the whole like half my brain is always thinking about what I could not steal but borrow from that game. What can I learn from that game, and how can I do something and make my stuff cooler or make a new thing or whatever it might be. And it's good because it really means that buying games are a tax write-off because it really is for business. But it does mean that I'm it's not a bad thing, but it means I'm not as into the game as I could be because I am half of my brain's thinking about the things versus I've had some instances in New World where I stopped and looked and took screenshots and then got attacked by bad guys that I wasn't paying attention to. So
You see, that's a sign of true immersion. You're actually the character and you're enjoying the view.
there you go.
Enough to get mauled by a bear.
Yep.
I found I do the same thing when I'm playing games. I end up wanting to record a video on how to do the thing or add something to one of my courses, a lesson on how to recreate that. I'm like, I should teach people how to do that. That's a really cool thing. And I get excited about it. Less on making it in my own games now because I don't have a cool one I'm working on. But I think I'd be in the same boat as you if I were.
Yeah, I keep seeing all these cool little vegetation crafting things that you can pick up and harvest and whatnot, and I'm thinking that's really cool. I could build a system like that. I just need to get the vegetation. We could model that. That's not an issue. And then I'm like, yeah, but we could also make those tendrils move. We could make this do that. These particles are cool, but we could make them responsive better. It goes deep when you start going down there.
There's this feature list bingo that every time you see a similar feature, you have to check every single small detail of it, and you're like playing at, does it do the thing the other game does? No. How about that super complex thing that nobody should do? Oh God, it does it.
I'll tell you one thing though. When I played it's a New World, brand new game. I faced this when I first played Skyrim, which I played it like 8 years afterwards, released very late to the game there. But with New World, I'm playing this game, and I'm like, okay, they definitely have seams, things going through seams left and right on the characters with the wardrobe and the gear. And I have this thing where I don't want seams crossing with the character stuff. I don't want that at all. We work very hard to not have that. Then I play these games, and I'm like, well, they do it left and right. Nobody seems to care. And then same with the geometry. Like they have these rocks that you're climbing over, and it's like really cool. Except a lot of them, you can totally see the texture seam between two textures, where it's just like, oh, there's a line at the top of this one, and that's like, but that's okay. People are okay with it. So I realized that I also have a bit of a perfectionist strain in me, where I don't want that to exist, and I hold myself back from releasing things or producing things at all. In fact, because I'm like, I can't release something that has texture seams in it. But turns out all these games have texture seams. They hide it a little bit, and then they sometimes just let it out there, and it's still people like it because in the end, if you're enjoying the game, you gloss over those as a player. You don't really think about those things because you're having so much fun playing the game.
And see, the real secret is, specifically in the game you mentioned, you let the community fix those things. You have to watch the high amount of mods that are there just to fix all these issues. And I was joking, by the way, on letting the community fix it, but
yes,
there is a fascinating amount of mods on just fixing seams and making everything blend better and higher res textures, and they do everything these days. Better shaders, better textures, better models to fit the textures, reducing seams, fixing glitches. You can make Skyrim not look like Skyrim. That's the best
I've
part.
seen videos on it. I haven't actually played with the mods myself yet, but I've seen videos
it's great.
on it. I bet.
So you're right. Earlier, since we're already talking about mods, you were mentioning some exploiting in mods and some code stuff that you wanted to talk about. I think it would be probably a good time to dive into that and maybe let everybody know about that. We were just having a little bit of a discussion about the binary formatter and its exploitability, and then just mods in general. You want to just tell everybody what was going on there?
Yeah, so programmers like quality of life features, and one of the quality of life features you'll find in the binary formatter provided by the system.serialization namespace, I think.
And this is in C Sharp, right?
Yeah.
C#.NET library.
Yeah. So one of the features it has is that it can serialize and deserialize objects. So you don't have to go and manually type all the fields of the object you want. Instead, you can just say serialize object, done. It works. Now, this goes to binary, which is very fast and it has its uses. But because you don't list the object type, it has to do that for you. And when it does so, so specifically, it
Can we
has to do
rewind
so.
1 second and just tell everybody what serializing means? For there's going to be at least like 10 people watching that don't know what serializing means. When you say you're serializing the object to binary, you just tell everybody what that is.
Yeah. So serializing something is the process of writing out what that thing is, a unique presentation of it in a serial manner that can be read sequentially the same way every time. So regardless of how many fields it has, regardless of whatever members of data it has, you can always read it the same way and get the same object. This is done so we can send them from one place to another, for example, or to keep information on a hard drive and then read it back later. So let's say if there's a person, you would write their first name, then their last name, then their age at the same order every time. And then you can read their first name, their last name, and their age at the same order every time. Now, this works great until you realize you have to write every field of something big every time. So let's say a Terraria world has 20 million blocks, and some of these blocks have special features. So now you have to start writing every single block, and every chest has contents. So you have to write how many chests there are, where they are, what contents they have, and if there are signs, where they are, what text they hold, etc., etc. A file can get really big, and there are a lot of steps that you're going to have to write and update and so on and so forth. So a serial way to read this, so if you have changes that you can address, is nice.
And like a manual version of that, you'd be writing out the text like maybe in each new line, right? Like the first name, second line, third line, and then your code would go the first name equals read line, second name equals read line. Like a very terrible, naive version of that would be that. And then you'd go build upon that and make something more and more complex and then continue. Sorry.
Yeah. So as Jason said, you would be writing every single thing that you want to serialize and every single thing that you want to deserialize in a unique line, but that's a lot of code. So programmers don't want that. Programmers want clean, easily understandable code. So instead of writing out all the fields, they just said, write the damn object, and then you get all the data for it. But objects have types, and if you don't know what type you're reading, it's becoming way more problematic to know how to read it. For example, say you have polymorphism, and you have a shape that can be either a circle with a radius or a rectangle with width and height. If you just say write the shape, you don't know what shape you'll be reading later, which is important. So when people just say write the shape, they also include what type the shape is. Then something can take that and say, well, I'm going to be reading a circle type, and then circle types have a radius. I'll read the radius for the programmer. And that's all fine and dandy until you realize somebody can go ahead and mess up what type you're about to read. And that becomes exploitable, a vulnerability, because there are types that can call system commands. There is the process type that has arguments of, it has serialization for its arguments. So what you can do is you can deserialize this into command line prompt and have the arguments be admin open connection to hacker place, and then the hacker can just step in and do whatever they want.
And that would happen just by trying to deserialize that file with the binary formatter, right? Just by trying to open it
the
and
file,
read
the
that
code.
thing.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be a file strictly, because if you have a game with a net connection and that net connection has a binary formatter, and you're sending packets back and forth between players, some malicious player can join in and say, well, you've been reading objects. Here's my object that is completely an attack request on an enemy, except it's not an attack request on an enemy. It's a command to let me into your computer or whatever. And that's a vulnerability, and there are ways around it. But the short gist of why we were talking about it is because this happens in way more places than you think, and there is a good reason for it. And there are ways around it that specifically a lot of companies decided you shouldn't be using this kind of thing anymore, and you should step away from it. There's actually a big fat warning on Microsoft's binary serializer page that is like, do not use this. Yeah.
It's a good one to know about. If people haven't seen it, I should probably drop the link up. There it is. I'll put it in chat. You should definitely check it out. If you are using it somewhere, watch out for it. I think we had the discussion about it because you had a friend looking at something related to it, right?
So a friend of mine wanted to show another friend that Unity is also vulnerable to this in classic context. Now, he was looking at every at every place he can to figure out where this can happen, but instead he opted for a regular game does binary serialization and loads in a save file. So instead, just load this thing instead, and now it opens a Rickroll video for you. So that was a nice thing to see, and horrifying at the same time. But the short gist is that you had to have very specific code in Unity to do that, so it's not like the whole engine is compromised or anything. Also, I just want to bring it up, but why would you not use something more secure over this? Well, the reason you won't is because the binary serializer is fast. And it's fast because it's not asking questions. You're telling it, this is what I want, and just does that. And that has value if you're trying to do a lot of things at once.
For example, if you can trust your sources, I guess. Yeah. And I was kind of intrigued by it too. I remember the first time I saw that hack and saw that issue, I was like, oh crap, this is bad, because I've been using this for like decades in all kinds of projects. Luckily, it was all for internal things that didn't really matter, but or like they weren't going to be exploited externally. But it still made me worry, because like it's one of those things that's probably out there everywhere in use, and made me wonder like how many other exploits are out there just in software and stuff that I don't know about because I don't work in those languages, and how much of that software is in the hardware that's sitting behind me. That's what I was wondering, like how much of the stuff behind me is exploitable and easy for somebody to just hack in and listen to everything I say. Not that I say anything that interesting that people need to hack in. They can just watch the YouTube stream, I think. But it does make me wonder,
Yeah.
Dave, there was a question that popped up in chat, and I wanted to pop this up for you because I've been getting into this hardware stuff a lot, and I'm actually going to pull some boards out in a second. But it was about Arduino boards, and it said, "Do the Arduino boards supply? Do the Arduino board, or do they come?" Can you read the question?
Yeah, I was actually just typing it. He put another question just after that. Are the Arduino supplied pre-programmed according to the board type? So yeah, if you go on the Arduino reference page, you'll find quite a few different Arduino boards from an Uno all the way through to things like the IoT 44 Nano. IoT 33 Nano. So yeah, some of them come with some extras put onto them. The IoT thing, for instance, is super easy on those Nano IoT boards, and you can find a whole page devoted to setting up the server-side stuff as well via Arduino's page, if you're interested in that sort of thing. Some of it comes supplied. You can wipe a lot of that off and do a lot of bits with it. If you're going to connect the Arduino board to Unity, you can do that. I do that. You can do that in multiple ways, but you can mainly just set up a UDP client relationship with it, and pass commands across from that. And there are a couple of videos I think on my channel that have how to actually put a UDP client together and just chuck across some strings and then just read them off and do whatever you want on the other side. And it depends what you're doing, obviously, as to how quick and how optimized you need to be about that.
Yeah, it's pretty simple getting the UDP stuff set up and running.
Super simple.
It's I think easier than people think. I've shown people the code that I set up to control. They got. Here, let me grab one of these. Where are they?
And on the just to finish off on the IoT stuff, if you go on to, I'm trying to remember the site, and I can look it up and post it later. But setting up IoT, the libraries that come with Arduino that you can just literally drop onto your board using the IDE that they supply, does nearly everything for you. And they've got a great guide on how to set that up. So go and check that out, and I'll try and look it up in a minute. I've got it linked somewhere, but I haven't done any of that for a little bit because I just keep copying and pasting the last one I did.
So what do you run on your Arduinos, by the way, to receive the messages and deal with the pins? Are you just writing your own little server code on there?
Just my own little, just a very basic reader that just reads the strings coming in. And then I just have a validation formatter that goes through and says, okay, yeah, this is a valid command. This isn't a valid command. Again, it's like writing the C# side of the UDP. It's not hard at all to write it on the Arduino. And there are plenty of examples. And as I say, there is a video on my channel that actually has an example of not doing it in Unity. The example is actually, I wrote a C# application to control the backlighting on my computer, which is custom made addressable LEDs off of running off of an Arduino that I programmed. So you can see how to do that. But the code is literally, it's all C# and it can all be copied and pasted into Unity and run from there.
Nice. Yeah, it's a lot of fun working with this stuff. This one's one of those little $10 Node MCU chips, and it's set up with the WLED software. Have you seen that?
Yep.
Yeah, it's just an open source light control software, and it takes UDP packets as well. You just send it the message with the starting index, the ending one, and the colors. You can give it the RGB of each light, like the red, green, blue, in the 3 bytes, and send those over, and just sets them up. It's amazingly simple. I was just blown away with how easy it is to code with. Like if you've ever done any networking at all you really got to do is make a byte array, fill that byte array, and then send it off. And the byte array is just bytes of the colors. So it was really easy. And I assume with yours, you're just reading the message and then setting a pin based on whatever the message you set to whatever value.
Yeah, that's right.
Or reading a pin and sending it back.
Yeah, on the very basic stuff. Yeah. It just reads the stuff and pops it out into pins, or reads what other input the Arduinos have got. Because also, I've got Arduinos on the lighting, which is the very basic ones, but then I've got Arduinos built into custom guns that then had tracked in virtual reality, and then Arduinos for the simulator, obviously. And they have external systems that come in that check, the simulators, whether it's at an extent or whether it's not an extent. And, they don't try and force the motors to just keep pushing it, even though it's metal against metal or anything like that. So there's lots of things like that in there that cut-offs and, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's fun stuff, man. It's definitely interesting to just how simple it is. I think people overestimate how complex it is. I find it harder to saw the things and get the wires right than any of the actual logical stuff. It's relatively simple. It's just plug and play and plug the wire in the right spot and you're good.
And the coding of Arduinos, if you're doing C# at the moment, it's not hard. It's really, really easy. And the references and the amount of support from the communities are excellent. You will not have a problem building stuff on Arduinos. If you really struggle with any of that sort of thing, there is something called a NetDuino. I think they still exist. Yeah, you have one, don't you? I have one as well. And NetArduinos are C# based. They don't have the similar sort of library extent that Arduinos do, because Arduino's just got a much bigger community. But NetArduinos are quite good fun, and they're all C# based. So you can get in there and do all sorts of wonderful things with that. And it might be a good starting point to then go and do some Arduino stuff. I've only done a couple of projects on NetArduinos just to see what they were like, just to test them. But the main one I did was a Pong game that actually had to write the actual stuff for actually showing on the screen, because it was a very small matrix screen, kind of like what you do in the LEDs. You set up bytes and then you send those through, and those do the first 8 because it was a black and white one. And then you have the next 8 and the next 8, and you have to send them as bytes going through. So a little bit different to a standard RGB.
Was that just on and off then?
Like that was a very small screen that I wrote Pong for, because I wanted to write Pong from scratch, chipset, everything, just get it going, and then do like these 8-bit arrays that just set up 8 on 8 to the dot matrix screen that came out. That was great fun. But yeah, the new RGB addressable LEDs are just so much easier to write everything for and put stuff out.
Amazingly simple. And speaking of easy, I think I mentioned these before. Just wanted to show them. Have you seen these? These are the self-soldering little wire connectors. It's not going to come into focus.
Fuzzy as anybody's business, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, anybody who hasn't seen these, there you go. They're really cool. So if you hate soldering like I do and connecting wires, like what I usually would end up doing is electrical tape, like taking 2 wires, twisting them together and electrical taping them. And they're like, I'll fix it later. And I never fix it. These are simple as shit. You literally slide it over the wire, strip it, push the 2 wires together, and then you slide it back right to the solder point, and then just run the little heat gun over it, melts the solder, connects the wire, and seals it all up. It's like magic. So
thank you for that. I actually need to do something about that, so I'm going to figure out how can I get one of these.
These things are very cool, and it was like, I think it was like $10 for a giant case of them on Amazon. So.
That's the biggest problem with doing sort of DIY at home hacking stuff, that you have to buy these things in bulk if you want to get any sort of price return. So you end up getting like 1,000 bloody transistors or something that you're never going to use, and you're just sitting there, I'll have another project. Yeah, you're not going to have 1,000 of them. But yeah.
Now that you have them, you have to figure out how to use them.
I just have to go around cutting wires and connecting them all the time. You know, the funny thing is I actually used them to fix something. So yesterday I was like, I had toddlers, so I figured I would show them that when something's broken, you don't have to throw it away and you can just fix it. So I had my toddler watch me fix the chair. So the other chair that I have here, the massaging chair, it broke because the cord's a piece of shit and it's like 6 feet long and it twisted around and it's been ripped off for like the last 3 months. And this thing took 5 minutes and it was back up and running, and it was a good lesson for the kids too, I guess. Remember, you can fix crap.
And if you're sick of your own controllers or your mice or anything like that, build one.
What? Just make your own, right?
Just make your own. Get a 3D printer as well. Get a 3D printer as well, because they're super fun. Super fun.
If I had space, I would have one already. I think I might have.
You have space. You've got a garage.
Yeah, but that's my wife.
I have a room.
So gym is it? Oh yeah, don't put a 3D printer in a gym. The smell.
No, she would be very angry. Yeah, I don't think she would approve.
Yeah, no, I took over the garage, and it's got everything I want. 3D print, several 3D printers, drill presses.
Why do you have multiple ones though?
I needed a printer to print his other printer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I have a very precise. Say very precise, not very precise, but it's an FDM printer. It's a Prusa Mark III. That's a very small bed, but it's just beautiful. You don't have to mess about with it. It self levels. It's really nice, and I could just whack prints out on that. But it's a small size. And then I have one that's 0.5 meter by 0.5 meter by 0.5 meter, which is not self-leveling, is a bit of a pain in the ass to run with, and I have to tweak and fix, and I've modded several times to get it running really nicely, but I can do massive prints. So, for instance, the simulator that I have in the background, usually, except it's being modded at the moment, has big arms on it. that you grab hold of joysticks and you move them about. And those arms have covers because there's mechanics that actually move between them, and they've got pinch points. So there are covers that cover them up. Now, if I was to try and print that on my small printer, that would take forever with chunks. So what I did is I printed the arms off on the big printer, and that just doesn't save any time because it takes just as long to print, but of course it comes out in nice big chunks, and then it's all finished off with sanding and car body spray and everything to get it nice.
That makes sense. You got to do the big one and the small one. I'll start with a small one. Maybe I can fit it in my background somewhere.
Prusa have a micro, like a real mini one now, and they're super cheap. And I endorse Prusa because their printers are amazing. And as a startup printer, you don't have to get into all the ridiculous modding and everything else to get it to work neatly. But some of the rep wrap stuff you really have to mod and to get to work to a production level.
Just be careful, because once you actually get a 3D printer, you'll find you have a lot less space in your place.
But they do everything. Like I remember I sat there for ages wondering where I was going to buy one. And I'm somebody who builds for a living, but I have people that have SLA and FDM printers, and they do the odd job for me here or there. So I was like, I don't know if I'm going to do it. And I've only got these few projects that I'm actually going to build with it. But then as soon as I bought one, it just took off. And I wouldn't have created this futuristic office thing that's got all the moving parts and everything else without a 3D printer, because there are so many 3D prints built into this office to do things. Like even my Stream Deck, because I've got a very small desk. Like I've got an 87 key keyboard and a mouse, and that's all that can fit on this desk because it goes up and down on the wall. And I want to have my Stream Deck on there. So all I did is I actually printed a mount and then attached it to the side of the desk. And now my Stream Deck is on the side there. And then I've got a XP Pen tablet for when I'm doing designing or sketching or teaching or anything like that. And I wanted to have that come over the keyboard. So I printed a mount and some hinges. And now I can just literally lift my tablet and put it over my keyboard to do my drawing. And then I can lift it back and put it on it. It's all on a hinge.
Nice.
So yeah, it's super handy.
That's really cool. Yeah, you've convinced me. I'm going to have to get a 3D printer and just start printing random stuff. Sorry, my wife, if she's watching.
Yeah, sorry.
Just watch out where you place it, because they do smell a bit, depending on the type.
They do, yeah. And if it's not so bad if you're doing PLA, but if you start messing with anything else, you do have to get vacuum to pull stuff off of it and all the fumes and everything. So if you start doing ABS, that's slightly poisonous, and you want to make sure you have a vent for it. So my bigger printer has vents because it's going forever, and my smaller one has a carbon filter. Of course, it's in the garage, so I'm not in there constantly.
You don't go in there and just breathe it in?
No, I try not to because there's so much stuff. I mean, but I've also had a paint booth in there. So I've got a custom paint booth, and that has a vent going to it. So all I did is 3D printed some parts, and then I split off the vent tubes from that to go to the very large printer, and then just put some shut-off valves in there that I made, and that goes out. But that has a furnace blower that sucks all the air out of that thing and just pumps it out to my neighbor. Out to the street. So it keeps it out. It keeps it out of the workshop. So that's the.
Well, just look at it like early level design for when your life becomes a Metroidvania and you need a poison level.
I remember I had a moment where I was playing Oxygen Not Included, and I'm doing all this automation stuff in Oxygen Not Included, and I'm really loving it. And then I was sitting there, and I looked down, and I've just got a Trello board that is called Automation, and it's all the automation that I'm doing on my own house. And I'm like, okay, I've just got to stop playing this game and actually go and do my own automation. So print off all the mounts, do all the bits, wire them up, get them set up the server and all the rest. But yeah, I realized I was playing that game way too much, and I should have actually just been doing the stuff myself, which is always the problem when you're a developer and you play games. And as Andrew said earlier, you see something you like and you're like, actually, I'm going to stop and go and build it myself. I did that in Half-Life Alyx. I'm not very far through Half-Life Alyx, because every time I turn it on, I see something, I love the detail, and I turn it off and I go and build it in VR myself, and then go back to Half-Life Alyx and do the same. So I'm doing it in half-hour increments at the moment, because that game is amazingly filled with interactions that are just so superbly designed and made. The
It's
next
full of
big thing,
inspiration,
though,
right?
yeah, next big thing is the CNC machine.
Oh, I'm waiting for you to get one of those NASA ones that just prints metal. They're just like,
yeah, they're quite expensive. I've actually looked at metal 3D printers, and they are super expensive, like super expensive. And yeah, I don't think my neighbors would be too happy with the sort of stuff I'd have to put there to get that defumed and everything, because they're quite heavy duty. But they're amazing. I've got a friend that works at Boeing who uses them, and they're crazy good. I would love to have one. As it is, I just have to kind of fumble with metal to get things done. I want to do a welding course as well, but then yeah, the most extent I've got to is I started looking at how to cast my own metal parts. So you basically 3D print, and then you put clay around the 3D print, and then you pour metal in that melts the 3D print away through a little tube at the bottom, and then that basically is a metal cast. It's not the best way to metal cast, but it's a way of metal casting. And then my wife walked into the room and saw me looking at how to pour molten metal into things, and just went, no. Like, not in the house, not in the garden, do it elsewhere. You've got a friend with a workshop, go there and do it there. Do not start pouring molten metal in our house.
I could see you trying that, though.
Oh, I will at some point. Yeah.
Just come over and you're all decked out like a robot.
Oh, I often look that way anyway with the other stuff, but yeah.
So we had some more questions pop up. I figured we'd jump into them. And before we do, though, I wanted to just mention that we're going to do the Rider giveaway a free license of Rider at the end of the show. So if you hang around for the end, we'll go through that and just do the giveaway live. And also don't forget the thumbs up button. Subscribe and share if you like game development at all, I guess. All right. So this question came in from Raku. I'm not sure how to pronounce that.
Yeah.
The Angry Bird. And it says they're trying to figure out what language to start, essentially. Should they start C++ or C#? They're searching on the internet, and they see a lot of recommendations for C++ for game development. But that's probably a little bit confusing because Unity's game development's all in C#. Same with XNA, and not everything is in C++. But back in the day, and even now to a big extent, most things were in C++. Back in the day, all things were pretty much in C or C++. And then C# started kind of becoming an option for game development around XNA, and then didn't really pick up, I don't think, until Unity became really big. So anybody want to kind of talk about what they would pick up and learn from, like if you were starting from scratch? I'm biased, so I would say C#. But if you were starting from scratch to learn game development now, what would you go with? Would you go with C++, C#, or what are you guys' thoughts?
So, as with all things, C# is more human-friendly, as one would say. C++ has a lot more advanced feature and tight control, and that's good if you need that tight control. Back then, we didn't have computers that could run things at 300 FPS, so getting every single instruction just right was important. And this is why C++ was so popular. You could avoid very big performance issues, memory issues, but you had to know how to hop between memory addresses and how to iterate them better, etc., etc. This is still valid, and if you'll be using an engine that utilizes that, like, say, Unreal Engine, which is really popular among big companies, that would be helpful. But if you're going to be looking at it in a hobby capacity, and you're going to be working by yourself, and you're a human who needs something humane to work with, C# is more accommodating to that. And Unity uses C#. So that's why. And Unity and Unreal are the two most popular engines, and they use C# and C++ respectively. So this is why they are so popular in the scene right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just to note, C# is used in quite a few of the big companies as well with Unity. Hearthstone, for instance, is a Unity game. I'm a bit biased in this because, I mean, I started back in the 80s with BASIC. And then I went Java, and then I went C.
Real quick, what was your first BASIC on? What platform? What computer?
The Amiga.
Ah, okay. Nice.
Yeah. So way back in the day.
I remember doing some Amiga stuff. It was really cool because it could do voice. It could talk. It's pretty cool. I had the VIC-20 was my first one, and it did not do any voice. I could do beeping. That was it. So I got to use my uncle's Amiga and talk. It was cool as shit. All right,
And I did
continue on. Sorry.
I did some stuff on an Apple before that, but it's going way too back, and I can't even remember what that was, like an Apple II or some shit. I can't even remember. But yeah, so then when I started, my first sort of professional jobs were in Java, and that was while I was, oh God, that's taking me way back. So 16, 17, I did a couple of jobs in Java. Then moving on from that, my first real job after university, even though university was all Java based on Unix, my first real job was in C because it was programming geospatial coordinate systems way back. And then C++. I got into game development because the guy who used to do the tools for our artists in Maya back in the day left the company, and I was the only other person in that group that could program in C and C++. So I ended up doing the Maya tools for the Maya API back then, and that's how I got into games. I met a guy from Sony, took an interview, got a job at Sony. C++ game engines all the way through. We played with Unreal a little bit, but again, we're talking about early 2000s here, so that was before it was the big blowout. There was no mobile phone games like there are now. And then
engines started to become free when mobile games came out, right? That was like the catalyst that pushed it over to being able to not have $1 million and still use a game engine.
Just to answer Michael's thing, it was Amos. Just a thing on the Amiga. But then when after that point of doing C++ for ages, I was also a tools programmer at Sony. So when C# came about and we started using it and started writing all the sort of code references and everything for using it in Sony, it just became the thing we used because it was so easy to create applications. Because if you've done C++ applications, there's a lot to create and a lot of libraries you bring in, etc. C++ you could create them very, very quickly. So we started switching to that for a lot of our tool resources that weren't in Maya or in the game level stuff. And of course, you can interop a lot of C++, so we were doing that as well. So C# became a thing. I left Sony and went into the indie game industry. So I'd been at Sony for like 7 years, went into the indie game industry, built my first indie games company with XNA and my own engine that sat on top of XNA. And that we ran for a little while until a friend was struggling with their game and their game company. And I went and helped them finish that first game for them. And that was when I got introduced to Unity. And that would have been really been about 2010, 2011. And then I never stopped. And I built all my stuff in Unity from then on.
What if you were starting out now? So you're like brand new, fresh out of college, or maybe you're starting college, first year in. Would you focus on learning C++ or learning C#?
I would basically look at what games I would like to make and what game companies I would like to work for. If I wanted to go into a big games company, if I was going to build my own indie game studio, I would probably go with C# and Unity just because of the size of the indie community that's using that. Though Godot now is making big headways in the indie industry. So Godot is something to look at as well that's coming up. But yeah, for me, it would have been C# and Unity going in the indie industry. But if I was doing it all over, I went into the AAA industry for quite a few years. And I would look at the games I wanted to make in the AAA industry that I liked and who was using it, find out what the game engine they were using, and then find out what the language they were using. And ergo, build with that language. So if I was a massive Hearthstone fan and I wanted to build that, I would get into Unity and C#. If I was looking at a lot of the other games that I actually like, it would be probably C++ and going into learning some Unreal stuff. There's no harm in doing both as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, I say this to a lot of people. If you're coming into the games industry, there's no harm in opening up Unity, having a play with Unity, opening up Unreal, having a play with Unreal. You can use blueprints on Unreal before you get into C++, but use blueprints, then decide to make your own thing, find some references, see how they do it, see if you enjoy working in that language, if you enjoy working in that engine, do you prefer working in the other engine? There's a lot more you can do now. Back in the day, we had to build our own game engine to then build our game that we wanted to build, and it was a lot more involved. Now you can chop and change. But I would say to a lot of people, if you're starting out, have a go, play with all of it. You've got the time to do it now before you get into one and really lock yourself down into it for a while.
So I do want to add on that. There was actually a question about most people recommending that you know at least 1-2 engines. And I wanted to mention that once you know one engine, you'd like to know how another engine works, because there is information that transfers over, but there are differences, and it's good to know them, so that you don't say, oh no, I can't do anything in that other engine. No, once you used one, you probably know how to use the other one pretty well. But there will be differences, so you just need to watch out for them. But it's really like, if you've used Unity for 2 weeks, getting to be comfortable with Unreal will only take like 2 hours. Probably.
Yeah, exactly. And I see the question that's been posted up: aren't most AAA tools made using C#? Tools that are made from the ground up, that are standalone tools, some level editors and some of the other various bits and pieces, a lot of those are made with C#, but it's not the case that most tools are made with C#. It's a bit of both. If you look at some of the 3D art tools, etc., a lot of them are built on top of Maya, on top of 3D Studio Max, on top of those things. Now, they're either using their proprietary scripting, they're going to be using a lot of C++ API tools for optimization. So, yeah, a lot of them are built that way. And what was the scripting language they've all moved to now, Jason? I can't remember. Python.
Yeah, Python is Blender.
Python's used quite a lot in the tooling system of C# as well. Python was coming into its own when I was finishing building tools and was moving into doing my own engines. So I took a few courses, learned how to use it all, and then never really used Python in any sort of real aggression. But yeah, I mean, you can be a tools programmer in the games industry on C#. But tools is a very different sort of kettle of fish. Being a tools programmer, you have to know a lot of different coding languages, and you have to be able to switch over a lot. I would, on a daily basis, go from doing a Maya tool in C++, wrapping that in MelScript, which was their proprietary scripting language, to give a display user interface to the user. And then I would go on to building some C# app for converting systems or building some sort of layout or something for the engine. And then I would be working on some scripting and some C and C++ for some conversion system between the tool set and the actual engine itself, because we had a proprietary engine that we were working with. So
how much of that were you doing when you started out tools programming? Because I'm thinking like the beginning of when I started tools programming versus the end, how different of a job that was. Like when I started out, I was like, I have one little task. It's basically like write this little thing that shows some stuff in a web page. That's it. That's the whole job, right? And then like over the years, it expands and doing all these different things with different languages and different tools. But was yours kind of the same, or did you jump in and they're like, here's all the different things you got to start with? I mean, when I jumped in, I didn't know what I was doing at all. So,
well, it depends. I mean, when I came into games, so before games, I was working in simulators and big motion simulators for flight controls and for aircraft. So that was a bit different. And a lot of that, I was working on radar. But when I went into the games industry, I was hired as a Maya API expert. So I basically did all the Maya API stuff. So it was literally C++ and MelScript on a day-to-day basis. And bringing in extra APIs for things like integrating Perforce into those systems and all the rest. But it did change. As soon as C# came around and we were starting to use that a lot more, things started to switch, because a lot of things that we were doing in the 3D modeling tools, like we had a full level editor in Maya. I wrote something that you could actually drop down and build the navigation in Maya, and then you could actually traverse in Maya, the 3D modeler. You could traverse the navigation system in Maya and then export it from Maya to go into the game engine. And then we started writing all of our level editors in custom C# applications post that, because we were doing a lot of our level editing stuff in Maya at the time. So yeah, C# really started coming in because of just the ease of use of building applications really quickly, and all of our command line stuff. So going from a lot of the bat script stuff we were doing to building custom C# console apps and just running them in those as well, changed as well a lot.
Yeah. Also, this ties back into the serialization thing, where you have one application writing out information, and then you have to make another application read that same thing and make it work.
Yeah, these are the tools where I use the binary formatter in my old C# dev tool. So there's probably some layout thing in there that could blow everything up, but luckily it's, again, all internal, so hopefully not.
Yeah. Sony being big endian, little endian, and all that rubbish you had to play with every time you wanted to do some sort of conversion. Yeah,
I'd forgotten
You
all
have
about that.
no idea how many things I want to mod, and then I figure out this value makes no sense, and then I realize I have to write a big binary reader again, just read everything in reverse.
When we went from the PS2 to the PS3 and they sent through all the architecture details, all in Japanese at the time, and luckily we had a guy who could translate on our team, because we were in one of the R&D teams. And yeah, oh, cell architecture, PS3.
So on the topic of tools, there was a question I was scrolling through about SQL, and I was going to say that was one of the first things that I had to learn and really get good with when I was doing tools development. But that was partially because I was working at a company where we had ridiculous amounts of SQL databases. Everything was in a Microsoft SQL database for content stuff, for player stuff. So it was super valuable there. If it's somewhere where they use it, I'm sure it's a very valuable thing to have and understand. Just make sure that you understand it enough before you actually start doing it. Like, you don't want to be working on a production database. Right? Even with years of experience in SQL, I prefer to just not work on a production database. I prefer to don't give me access unless I absolutely have to have it, because it's too easy to mess things up. So it's very valuable. It's a skill that will definitely help you get jobs. It can help, at least in my experience. But yeah, make sure that you understand it before you actually try running it. And don't exaggerate your skills.
And if you want to say, go ahead.
I was going to say, remember, a lot of the things in the games industry are not actually just the game engine itself. A lot of people would write off SQL as, why the hell do I use SQL? I'm not going to be putting it in my game engine. If you're making the content management system for the game and you're doing all of that area, then you're going to be coming up against things like SQL and NoSQL and all the rest of that sort of thing. So knowing these things doesn't hurt. I've used it in Sony, and I've used it beforehand. I worked for an aircraft parts company when I was a teenager, and I used SQL there to do everything. So with Visual Basic, which is another language that
it's probably less valuable now, though, just because a lot of depending on where you are, a lot of the things are just going to be outsourced as a service. Saving this data off may not be something you're doing internally. But if you're at a bigger company, like the ones Dave's mentioned, they're probably going to have something like this internally. They're going to have their own persistent system, most likely, especially they got a bunch of games and stuff. And they may or may not be using SQL or something similar to it. So it's a valuable skill. I would say it's definitely a bonus, but some places it could push you over the edge. But not very many places.
Voice code normal form. Do you remember that? I had to learn all that stuff. Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, man. Go ahead.
Here's a curveball, though. If you want a safe environment that is actually going to let you impact things at runtime regarding SQL, the Civilization 5, a game on Steam, actually uses SQL for the data of everything going in the game. And you can actually mod it and use SQL to make your queries for, like, say, buffs and etc. For units. And that was something that was the first time I actually had to deal with SQL in my entire life. So that was a fun learning experience. Game code with SQL.
I would say SQL is great for adjacent roles too at a game studio. Anything to do with marketing and the data reporting, etc., is going to be using SQL most likely. So if you're trying to get into the door and maybe you don't have the dev job available, but you want to be in the studio somewhere, chances are having that skill is going to be making you more valuable. I know in my role, I don't need to have it, but the fact that I can do queries myself and pull my own data and compile my own data and do my own reports makes me far more valuable, and means I don't have to wait a week or two for someone from the data team to come back with some data that might or might not be exactly what I was looking for, and I can just do it myself. So I think having the SQL skills is very marketable for many roles.
Yeah,
It's
and
true when you're
also
doing a game too. Like looking at game stuff and game content, being able to actually query that stuff without having to go ask a database administrator or somebody else makes a big difference. And if you're the only one on the team that can do it, or you're somebody added to the team that can do it, it helps because then you can help other people with that skill as well. That's a good point, Andrew.
Yeah, I was about to say that it's again on exactly what you mentioned on adjacent jobs. It's good to know SQL if you're a game programmer still, because some people may want data on what's in the game, and giving them data that they can query themselves is also a useful skill. And you have to know what's a nice way to consume that if you want to do it. Like you have to give them that to them somehow. So it's nice to have on the side, but yeah. Also, on that topic, in Terraria, we actually have a bunch of like data that nobody else sees. That's just a ton of printers for exactly what's the best stuff in every point in the game, and if we have anything that breaks protocol. For example, we found a bug where one item would slip through the floor when you throw it into the world, and usually people craft it and then never actually have to throw it. But when you did, it would, at specific cases, go past the floor and just fall to the end of the world. And we were like, why would that do it? And then we were checking the code for a bunch of time, and apparently we never set the width of the item. So it was just like, oh yeah, I'm not colliding with anything. And when we saw that, we were like panicking because we have 5,000 items. There's no way we're going to be checking all of them for manually if they fall through the floor. So we just wrote a code printer that said, well, find all items where width is 0 and the item yada yada. But that's a good example.
Yeah, I used to do all kinds of SQL statements at Sony to look for bugged content or weird content or stuff that designers were curious about. They're like, hey, are there any NPCs dropping this thing? Like, well, let's go write up a little script and find out if there's all of the different ways to get it. And then the best part is like when you can do SQL and code, then you can turn that into an interface that they can just hit and give them a little web point where they can put in the item and see all of the stuff. And it was it's certainly handy, that skill, learn databases and just being able to get through data. So there were some questions about a racing game, and I don't really have good answers for this. I'm hoping maybe you guys do. I said there a question about a racing game. Everybody recommended to avoid Unity's wheel collider and implement a raycast car. I'm struggling to find good resources on custom car movement like tire friction and stuff. And then there was a follow-up part. Also, another question on the same topic. I saw a few videos about volumetric wheel collider, but not a single clue on how to implement one, only spheres and capsules. Have you guys played with the wheel stuff at all in Unity? Is this something... I know Dave's made a racing game, but this was not in Unity. That was an XNA, right? Like,
No, that was in Unity.
was that one in Unity too?
You talking about Smash Cops?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was Unity.
Why was I thinking that was an XNA?
No, XNA was the other company. That was
Yeah.
my own game company was XNA until it went to, then that switched over to Unity. But the other company, the company of friends that I ended up going and helping and working with at the beginning, that was all Unity.
That was
a racing game.
I should know that. My memory is terrible. I'm getting old. Anyway, so
however, we did not need to use the wheel collider. I don't even know if the wheel colliders existed then, because it was like Unity 2 or 3 or something really early on. We didn't use them in a nutshell because we didn't need to at all. I mean, at the end of the day, you really have to look at what you're doing with your car. If you're doing off-roading, yeah, sure, have a play with them, see if you like those over casting your own rays. But yeah, for a straight street racer where you're not leaving the ground at all and you're not going over bumps or anything like that, there's not a lot to it really to do it outside of that, though I might be saying that in a biased way, I don't know. But yeah, I've not had to play with them myself. I've seen them and I've built a model that used them, but never in any sort of professional or production basis, just to know that they were there and try them out.
So I'm going to have a hot take here, but the reason most people will recommend not to use the Will Collider is because when you want to make a racing game, it's usually not about the racing game, it's about the feel good of being fast, and accurate physics will only get in the way of that instead of help you, because game physics are mostly approximated and they're not as true to real physics, and there's going to be a lot of pitfalls if you try to get as accurate as possible in a game engine. And one of the benefits of having a sphere and capsule cast is that instead of relying on things going exactly physically accurate, you can say, well, it looks like it should be able to do this, or now I want in my game that if this situation happens, you would get a little speed bump to ease the curve of like really weird angles or whatever. And this is where using cast and having your own movement code will help you. Now, in regards to volumetric or volumetric collision for your movement. So when you do a sphere and capsule cast, there should be a field that you get in one of the hits that says this is how much this cast moved forward. So this is where you can use these. Like, say, if you want to simulate a ball falling, what you would do is make a sphere cast downwards at the amount of movement that should happen in this frame, say the velocity times the velocity in meters per second times the delta time, and that's how much you should move this frame. And then you do a sphere cast, you get how much the sphere actually moved, and then if there should be any remaining movement, now you use whatever physical calculation there is to say the ball bounces now or the ball doesn't bounce now, etc., etc. But it's all really simple compared to how it sounds. Basic kinematic physics, invest 2 hours reading on it, shouldn't be too difficult. There should be one game on Unity Reddit that ST Studio, TS Studio, something like that, that has like really advanced vehicle damage, and they're structuring meshes at runtime to deal with deformation and all that for the vehicles. That might be nice to see. And then again, yeah, there's also the asset store. Most of these assets don't have entirely perfect simulation depending on what you're trying to do. Like if you take some of these into, say, how do you call it? Wipeout, those games that have like a bunch of obstacle courses and really weird platforms and all that. If you try to take a car on that, those might fail, these kinds of assets, but they will do you justice for most normal roads. So, yeah. But if the question is about volumetric cylindrical wheels, just casts and figuring out what you want to have happen and using the information from raycast hits.
This is the way you'd go. Yeah, I've used this pack. I just wanted to share it because I've actually used this one in a job interview. It's pack to use as a part of the interview. Make a racing game using this pack in a really quick amount of time. Super simple. And I actually really liked it. It was pretty impressive the way that the thing was put together and the way that it worked and the customization. And that was many, many years ago. It looks like they're constantly still updating this, which is weird. It's got new reviews and stuff. When's the last update on this thing? Releases. Yeah, 2020. So still pretty updated. But yeah, I would look at something like this too, just as an example for some source and see how they did it too, if you're kind of curious and interested in it and not already at the point where kind of making these final decisions. And more for everybody else that's kind of curious about racing games and watching along.
And also, here's another neat tip. If you do want to have specific shapes for movement, like say the car body itself, be part of the equation, there is actually a method called rigidbody.sweep_test, which will sweep the object and all of its colliders in the direction that you tell it to, and then you can get the information from that. So this is how you can say the middle of the car bumped into something that it shouldn't and stop everything else.
Oh, interesting. I was looking at a question I don't know the answer to. This one about somebody debugging. Rob's debugging, and when he steps into something.
I have a script that eventually populates a table with label 0.text equals roles.0.
Oh, I see what's happening. It's decompiling.
Text. Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you don't have just my code enabled, what would happen is it will step into any type of change to the code. And Unity's case, the text property is just that, a property, which means it executes codes inside. And writer, specifically, if it's the thing being talked about, would step into code that's not yours, so you can see exactly what happens. And
Visual Studio is doing it too. Looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll step in.
I didn't use Visual Studio in years. Sorry.
Source for it. Yeah. So you hit F11. It was probably the default F11 while you're stepping.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. So not a decompiling one, just stepping into the namespace explorer.
So there's an option to disable that, but I just hit F10 and step over.
Yeah, but there is value in it though, because you want to be able to see the type or adjacent fields that you might be using the wrong one, etc., etc.
Yeah.
The thing you want to do is when you reach a line that you know would do this, you just press F10 instead of F11, for example.
And if you step into it, just remember Shift F11 steps back out.
Yeah.
To get you right back out. That's a good one. I was trying to figure out what that was saying when reading it, but it made a lot more sense after we went through it. So were there any other questions you guys wanted to take for now? If not, I'll just ask everybody to submit them and hit the thumbs up button and subscribe and share and all that stuff. And go over a couple more and hit some other topics. But did you have any other questions you guys wanted to hit?
Yeah, Abdullah just posted, am I late? Yes.
A little bit, yes. But we're going to do the giveaway at the end of the show. So it'll last like 10 minutes. As long as you're around for that, have an opportunity to win a rider and step into some stuff. Any other questions?
Yeah, they've been coming in thick and fast. I've been trying to keep up with them, but I think we hit most of them.
Somebody asked what's the best skill set for a gameplay programmer, which is kind of a hot topic, I guess.
Does Andrew need some coffee? We
I
just keep
ran out
talking
of
about
coffee.
code is the problem.
Yeah, well, you're talking about code that I'm like, that's cool. I've never done any racing. Like, I'm just listening though.
Sorry.
It's quite all right. I enjoy learning about it.
And Andrew, I'm sure, has coffee. I've never seen him sitting
I'm
there
out
without
of coffee. I have to drink it fast. I don't like cold coffee, so it goes away pretty fast. So
Get one of these metal containers.
I know there was that new hot gadget, wasn't there? That's the heated mug.
Yeah, there's that too. Or I could just drink it fast.
Yeah.
Not going to help when it's all empty all the time.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what microwaves are for.
All right, let's see. Here's another question that popped in. So, would you have a suggestion of a project to learn arrays and lists and the proper use of each? I was thinking about making a UI with a character selector with different weapons. So, or maybe a spawn. They're trying to come up with, I guess, the right way or right place to use a list versus an array, and maybe some example practice projects or something. So, what are you guys' thoughts on arrays, lists, collections in general? Because arrays and lists are like the two that everybody learns about first, and then eventually finds out about all the other stuff. What do you guys think on this?
So, in raw perspective, arrays are fixed size and lists are actually arrays under the hood that expand as you try to use them. But the reason this will come into play is if you have an array and you get asked to add something to this array in the middle, how do you do that? And if you've only used arrays, you're going to say, well, I'm going to have to make an array, I'm going to have to fill everything up to that part, then I'm going to insert what I need now, and then I'm going to keep filling it. But that is going to be annoying. So then you say, well, I probably should use a list. Now,
No,
this
you
is a
use
very...
resize array first.
Yeah, but
Step one,
then you
gotta
still have to...
resize here.
He's joking.
Yeah, but if you... yeah. So in a microcosm, this is exactly what the issue touches on. So lists are for if you have something that dynamically resizes arrays, or if something is the size of the collection is known from the start and you just have to fill it. But some people would go and say, well, I can use an array and a count number and I'll just reach the cap eventually. But until then, I can keep adding and increasing the count and just not iterate for the entire array. As for projects for learning about it, I say try to make games using a grid and then try to figure out what you can do with the game that needs a collection that expands over time. The grid will serve as your arrays, and the things that expand over time will be your list. For example, the list of moves that happened to show at the end of the game, whatever else.
He did mention spawning as well, and if you want to do arrays and lists, you can have the array of prefabs that you're going to instantiate off to spawn, and a list keeping control of what's been spawned and how to bring them back in and all the rest. But once you've got really good at it, you'll move to a queue and away from a list for your spawning. But yeah, there we go.
So here's a question. Flip it around a little bit. Is there ever a reason to use an array instead of a list?
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically, because list is a wrapper for an array, it's slower by nature because you're going to go through more steps figuring out what you want out of it. And arrays are extremely fast because there's nothing in the way between you and what you want. So when you access an array, it's more performant. When you use a list, you get the benefit of resizable array.
For most people, the answer is probably no, though.
Yeah, exactly.
The performance difference is so small that you're not going to notice it unless you're doing some of the really high performant parts of the code. If you're doing some stuff like, especially get into dots and aligning the memory in order, is important and stuff. But for the majority of your situations, you can just use a list, and then if you have a performance issue or something, or you need to lock the size down, switch to an array. But I find that by default, now that I've realized and learned, I forget which one of you guys showed me this, that lists serialize in the inspector now, I pretty much just use them for everything. I use lists instead of arrays 90% of the time, just because it's a lot of time it ends up being an array and then I end up switching it to a list because I needed to be able to expand it. That said, serialized fields end up as arrays a lot of the time because I don't usually expand those in code.
I think just to sum up what Yuri said, if you're changing the size, go for a list. If you're not, keep an array.
Yeah. There really isn't too much to practice there in that regard.
What about the other collections? You want to mention real quick what they are too? Because I think like if you know about arrays and lists, it's so easy to use some of the other ones, like you said, a queue, right? Like
queue, stack, linked list,
dictionary.
Yeah, and then actually, you want to just briefly tell people what those ones are, what the differences are. So you've got a list, which is an array that you can add things to and remove things from at any point. Or you can remove something right from the middle of a list if you want to, and it's just going to work. It's going to readjust things. What are some of the other ones, and what's the difference? Who wants to hit one?
So let's touch on dictionary first, I guess. When you say, I have an array, it has a fixed size, and there are things in it, that's nice, but then you say you want to get something out of that array immediately. You have to know which place in the array it is. That's the index.
Like you want to find a specific thing, right?
Yeah, like say I want to get the third player, something from the third player, you have to know it's the third player. So you can say array index 2 because it starts from 0, but yeah.
Right.
but you can jump straight to it. Now, if you know the index that you want to search, that's great, but that's not very human readable. And dictionaries let you address that in a relatively adjacent way, where your index, instead of being a number, it can be interpreted in any other way. So it can be another object, it can be a name string, it can be a character, etc., etc. A dictionary maps out one key index into another value. The same key will always get you to the same value when you use a dictionary. So one example for that would be make a dictionary of students in a school, and then if you want to find out data for that student, you say student where the number is their ID, which is not an index because you don't want IDs get to like 1 billion, and you don't want an array of 1 billion things just for students. So a dictionary by the student ID will just let you hop straight to that, for example.
Yeah, they're a good way. They're one of the things I use instead of an array a lot of the time. If I have some data that I need to like quickly look up by something, like by a key, I want to find like all of the war, like in the battlers thing, I actually have a dictionary based on who you pledge to. So you pledge to Dave, you can look up the pledges by the key Dave and get the list of all of the people that pledged to it. It's super handy, and one of the most used data types. It's probably the one that I use the most after lists, maybe arrays, but right around there. What about the other ones? The other ones are a lot simpler, right? Dictionaries are the most complex.
I just want to touch on something before we move past arrays, dictionaries. One reason that you'd want to use arrays and dictionaries over a list is, again, because when you mention what index you want, it's really, really fast to get that information back to you. And you can say, well, I'll just iterate through the entire list, find the thing that matches, and then I'll just take that. But that is going to be extremely slow as your collection size increases, and how many searches you're making through it. If you just need 3 things out of an array of 1,000, it's 3,000 searches versus just 3 gets. And
that, and then you scale that up to like 3 million, and suddenly your computer falls apart.
Yeah, and depends on how frequent you do that too. Like 3 million, but once per hour isn't that bad.
Right.
But if you're going to say in Terraria, we do 5 arrays of like 1,200, 400, and we do like 10 iterations of them per frame minimum. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it reminds me of the so the Vanguard game that I worked on. It had, when it first launched, it had terrible performance. I've told the story about it a couple times, but it was largely due to the UI code. So the UI code would scan through all of the elements and then scan through the UI customization stuff and do string comparisons against everything to look it up. And they switched, there was a little bit of optimization, essentially caching those into the C++ equivalent of a dictionary, sped it up, and the frame rate, it was from 3 frames a second to 30 on a lot of systems, the difference. This thing was killing it because it was doing 1 million of these a frame, and then switching it over to a dictionary or the equivalent just totally changed the game and was a huge performance improvement. So anything like that, where you're looking at lots of stuff constantly and looking it up, a dictionary is going to be a quick, easy win, I think. Yeah. What about queues and hash sets and stacks, though? Anybody want to take those?
You want to say hash tables there?
Queue, going in, you're going along the queue, you're coming out. Stack, you're going on, and you're coming off. There you go. Job done.
It's pretty simple. So you're next. Add them and you have to pull them out. And they're either first in, first out, or first in, last out, like the stack one, where the last thing that you put in there is the first one that you get back.
FIFO, LIFO.
Yep. So I'm going to say this. If you want to use a queue and a stack, they are structured collections that are there for the purpose of having clean understanding of how they're meant to be used. If you said, I have a list and I'm adding something to the end, but I'm also taking something out of the end, and I'm adding something back to the end, and I'm taking something out of the end every 5 fucking milliseconds doing some weird iteration, nobody's going to understand what you're doing. But if you're saying stack add, stack pop, people know, oh, he's going to read it in a way that a stack works, that they can visualize humanely. And the same thing goes for a queue, where things have their place in the queue. You can't go ahead and read something ahead of them. You have to process the queue in the way that you put things in it. And they don't really have that many performance benefits as far as I remember. They are slightly better at doing the adding, getting, and working on the specific things they're made for. But yeah, they limit you in how you work.
So, for instance, Unity used to have a tutorial up that was about spawning, and they used to have a list. And what they showed you is that whenever you wanted to spawn something new, you would go through the list to find one that wasn't enabled, and then you would use that and spawn that into the world. That means you're looking through that list every time to find one that's not enabled or anything like that. If you have a queue, you could just put something on the end that's not enabled, go through. Oh, I'll pop that off at the end. There we go. I've got the thing, and I'm just pulling it straight off, and it's ready to go. So, yeah, I mean, my poor manager uses a queue, not a list, for that simple reason. You could use a stack there, but sometimes when you use a stack, if you put something on and you've got any sort of routines running on that, or it's closing out or anything like that, if you then take straight off of the stack, you could have something running there. So I often use a queue just to mitigate some of those things, but it's really not that much.
There is this concept of letting things cool down as you take them out of a collection in games. For example, if you have a bullet that has an explosion particle and the bullet just hits something and an explosion particle plays, well, you don't. This bullet isn't in use anymore, so you technically can put it next in queue. But if it were a stack, you'd take it immediately, even though the explosion is still playing, etc., etc.
To bring through that, what I do usually is if I've got a bullet or something like that, when the bullet hits, I actually spawn the explosion and run the explosion. That's separate from the bullet system that I run. But yeah, I mean, a lot of times when you're disabling things, it's going down and disabling sub things and all the rest. So yeah, the concept of cooldown is where the queue comes in. But yeah, ideally don't put it back on the queue until it's finished. But yeah.
Yeah, there's also the whole idea of how you want to author content will affect how you manage that content later. So, for example, just how we talked about the bullets and the explosions, some developers would like to see both the bullet and how it explodes within the same prefab. So they will be parts next to each other instead of other things, where you can spawn them separately and have disconnected whatever you want. Blue bullets that shoot green explosions that have red muzzle flashes and all that other shenanigans.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Really great for games that have heavy customization and randomization like Borderlands, though.
Any other types or questions we should hit?
Well, I just wanted to bring it up. If you are concerned about performance and that's a really big thing for you, I did put a link that shows the big O notations for every collection type in a really easy way to see. Might be worth sharing. But that's about it.
Cool. I just want to pop on stacks to give an example of stacks. The undo redo queue.
Oh,
yeah. Good example of some stacks. If you really want to look at that sort of thing.
Yeah, there is the concept of, specifically with undo and redo, it's the whole command pattern and being able to undo and redo specific things. And knowing when to clear your stack if you can't actually undo an action is going to be a really big thing for you there. But that's the classic example, yeah. A stack of steps that you can take and untake.
And a lot of puzzle games now are putting undo redo into their puzzlers. It's becoming really popular to be able to control Z from things you're doing. I had a conversation with somebody who's building an amazing puzzler the other day, Patrick's Parabox, which is coming out soon, and everybody should wishlist it on Steam because it's awesome. And he was talking about undos and orders. So guys, if you want to listen to somebody talk about puzzlers, Patrick's Parabox. The guy Patrick is a great resource to listen to because he's really digging into it. Yep, there it is. Fantastic game. I've played it. It's coming out soon, and everybody should add it to their wish list because it is just awesome sauce.
That looks pretty cool. Let's add it. Oh, and there's a free demo.
Yeah, it's an amazing game. The guy who made it's a genius. And he's won awards on it. It's looking really good. And I chat to him on a regular, and he is just an index of puzzle games when you talk to him. And it's all come to light in this great game that he's built.
Nice. Looks really cool. So I'll drop the link for that in chat too, so everybody can go check it out and grab it.
Cool.
Wish list it and grab the free version. Try it out. Nice. So I think we're good on data types. Unless you guys had any more to add on that?
We didn't touch on trees. If you want to do that.
Sure. Well, you can briefly just talk about it. I very rarely end up using trees. So yeah, you want to just jump into it and give some examples?
Yeah. So a tree is a structured collection where you have a set of identifiers for something. Say, how do I actually explain this easily? Say you have a person searching dictionary, and you want all the people who start with the name Anne, A-N, and what you could do is have a huge list, and then you iterate and check starts with. But if you know you're going to be searching in a sequential way for separate bits of data, like each letter of the name, you could build it as a tree where every letter has nodes that it connects to. And then those nodes keep connecting to other things. And as you add things to the tree, only the things that it will expand on get put into their respective nodes. And then when you step in, it's actually a really fast iteration. So say if I'm looking for Andrew in Anne, I will look at the A node, and if I only have two names that start with A, that's only going to be two things to traverse. But then if I check for N, then I get only the names that go there, and
those nodes would just be connected. So you'd have that A node kind of at the top, and then the N node, and maybe there's an atom that's got a D node. There'd be two nodes down connected, right? So then you can easily see and kind of expand it out.
Yeah. And one of the benefits of these types of collections is that they're not exactly restricted by how you store the information in them. So the binary search, the tree can be made out of anything. And you can use that for many different operations where you're trying to add things and finding out how to go for a specific value that you don't know in a really easy, fast way. For example, one of the common questions you'll get is having a binary tree sorted by the smallest values to the leftmost, if it has a left and right node, etc., etc. And those are good thinking practices. In practice, you probably won't ever be using this unless you're in really, really heavy operations that have multiple identifiers, but it's still a thing. I'm sorry if I didn't explain it well, if anyone has...
No, I think it's a good thing to know. I mean, like one good example is just like auto completion, right? You want to do auto text. It's a great way to be able to find all of the valid answers really easily without scanning through and searching to see if it starts with this thing on every word, right? You know all of the possible options, and you can auto complete and kind of weigh those and show them, which is super handy to do those. But there are probably lots of other scenarios where you use them. Good examples.
Chess,
chess, the tree. Yeah, the tree of all available moves and what moves have the best percentage of succeeding, etc., etc.
Same with AI in puzzle games. The most recently I used it was I had an AI on a grid, and that had a set of actions it could do. Exactly the same as chess. It's the tree, then done values against those options, pulled those back. What's the best value to run and perform the action. I think I mentioned it in a video.
You got a video on that? Can you give me a link to that so you can put it in the description?
Don't know. I can't remember whether I went into it or not in depth. So this is.
You can watch it and let us know if you didn't.
Yeah, complain about it.
Leave a comment on there and say, Dave, you need to do it in depth, damn it.
Yeah, it was a video from a hackathon as well, so I'm not even sure if it had. Oh, my YouTube's playing sound.
We will definitely get that link. I'm going to drop it in chat real quick right now.
This was a hack I built in like a day or 2 days, so I'm not even sure if it does go into it too much, but very, very basic AI I wrote in 4 hours that used a quick tree just to put values against actions that could happen, and then would basically come back and say, okay, that's the best because they get the highest score. So the AI would then go and perform those actions of doing a shot or doing a move. So move or take shot, move or attack, move or retreat. And then it would do all that sort of thing. Anyway, it's a tree.
Check it out. So there's a question that popped up about carpal tunnel. I don't have this problem at all. You guys had any problems with pain from typing too much or sitting? I know it's a common thing, especially for people who type a ton, but as a programmer, I find that I don't type that much that I get this problem. I feel like you get it more from gaming than from actual like development, because development, like my hands are on and off the keyboard a lot while I'm thinking and stuff. When games, I'm like sitting there constantly moving. Well, do you guys have these problems? Do you have any suggestions?
I do have some, but I want to say that you brought up a really can of worms here when you said that you don't have this problem because as a programmer, it's not that big a deal compared to being a gamer. That's exactly a hot take here is that you're exactly right, because as programmers, we spend more time reading code and making small edits than actually writing a ton of code. And this is why we keep preaching that your code should be human readable and easy to understand and easy to work with, because you want to spend less time reading it, being able to act more. When you play, you always have to be doing something. Therefore, you'll be clicking more and introducing the carpal tunnel issue more. That's it. How to cope. If you find that you have this problem, remember to take frequent breaks. Put an alarm if you have to. Your health is important. I think cold helps reducing the swelling and avoiding actions that make it worse. And if you really want it, there's actually a really funny video that revealed to me there are actually gloves that help you straighten your hand against carpal tunnel. And that should be really helpful if you need it.
Dave's going to pull them out right now. Just
I thought I had one in here. Oh, damn, I don't have it in here. Oh, that's annoying.
Oh. No wonder your hand hurts.
I've got one somewhere, but that was because I bust my hand building something rather than anything else. But it locks the hand here, and it locked the thumb in place as well because I strained the thumb. But yeah.
Have you had any problems?
I mean, I've got arthritis, so I don't know. 'Cause I'm old. Yeah, I mean, the best advice I have is look at your work area. I mean, Yuri's right. Take breaks, and all the rest. Look at how you're sitting. Look at how you're positioned as far as your arms are concerned to your keyboard, your mouse. Are you straining? Are you level? There's lots of good videos out there on basic ergonomics on how to sit, how to adjust your desk. If you've got an up and down desk, even better, because you can bring it to the exact level you want or raise your seat. There you go. Jason's playing. Maybe you'll get on better with a trackball than you will a mouse, but again, you're still looking at how your wrist is bent when you're using it. I've never had a major problem. I mean, I code for 16 hours a day on the regular, and I don't have a problem with carpal tunnel. But then it's a per person per case basis.
Yeah. What are you doing the other 8 hours? Is being lazy?
No, you got to eat, and then you have to sleep for 4 of them.
Just 4.
By the way, I am not a physician. Do not take medical advice from me, and do not take
not medical advice from any of us. It's just Intent
Dr.
advice.
Dave.
Don't do as I do. The best thing I ever did was get a really good chair and look at where my arms and hands were positioned. My mouse is slightly lower than my arm is actually in, so my arm keeps a nice steady straight, and I'm not bending like this all the time. If you feel a strain, then take a break, stop. Take a break and look at what you're doing and watch a video to see if you're doing the right thing ergonomically, and then make a change.
Ergonomics are, in general, a really big thing. Don't fuck with your back, your arms, or anything else.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I went for a small keyboard, an 87 key one, because I found it was nicer bringing my mouse closer together, because my arms were closer together, and I wasn't out like this, and I wasn't straining my hands like this, which I did when I had a numpad on my keyboard. Again, I'm different than other people. So I did that as well. And obviously, if people have seen what my desk is, it's ergonomics to the core. So, and buy yourself a really good chair, because it's not just your hands, it's your back. Sitting like this for days on end, you really need to get a good chair. But I think we've gone over chairs quite a lot.
And for the love of God, raise your monitors, because something I see really commonly happen is that people don't put their monitor really high up, and then they end up slouching, so they have to get on a head level with it, and that would completely destroy your back. So watch out for that.
Yeah, you'll notice just even looking down a little bit over a period of time will screw your neck.
Just go something like this.
Oh, that's child's playing compared to my office.
We need to see your office sometime.
It's on pictures. There's a video of it. I've got to do a better version, and a newer version, because that's 6 months ago and it didn't have the charging station or anything built, or the gaming station, which I now have.
Also, for those who use their phone in bed, get one of those mounts that you can put on top of your bed that puts your phone upside down, so you can just use some remote control to simulate the touch and just not tilt your head down like this. And yeah,
I have an arm on a tablet that I literally swing over and can tilt it like this. So I just sit there watching anime at night like that. And I was going to put a big TV. My wife won't let me have a big TV or a projector in the bedroom because she wants to sleep, funnily enough.
Amazing.
Have this big light source in the corner just beaming. But also they do recommend not using any mobile devices in bed, because your bed is where you sleep. But again, don't take my
blue light's
advice.
bad.
I sit there. Oh yeah, set your night mode on. But yeah, I sit there with a tablet above my head for about 2 hours a night. So
I have the TV on with rain playing in the background to knock out the baby.
Also, I just want to mention that we mention a lot of accessories for helping these kinds of things, but they're really, really cheap usually. Like we're talking $10 total probably for all of what we've mentioned. Except for the chair. The chair will cost like 1,000 times more than that.
But invest in your health.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to be doing this,
exactly.
if this is your livelihood, if you're going to be doing this for a living, put some investment in. Don't go cheap.
Yeah, and we're not just like talking about money. It's also invest the time to do the proper research to know how to get the right thing for you.
I still need to find the perfect chair for me. I have not figured that out yet.
You want to see some horror films?
They're too expensive to just order and test. I gotta actually try it.
Well, just come round and sit in it.
Sure, yeah. I'll make a flight.
As you stop being sick, I'll come over, Dave.
Also, do you want to see something horrific?
As soon as you let me.
Want to see something horrific, absolutely horrendous? That's been in the screen the entire time?
I do.
My chair. I present to you.
That is.
Oh dear God.
Yeah, so my chair broke. And,
I thought you upgraded.
Yeah, so this is what I'm with for the past few weeks, and I'm still not found a replacement.
Are you just trying to decide what to get, or?
Yes, and also I'm finding this really comfortable, and I'm sitting straight anyways, so I figured it might not be too terrible, except for the lack of backrest. But
you gotta start branding them and selling them then. Like perfect posture chair, the Terraria chair. Right?
Oh god. The Terra
Oh.
toilet.
Terraria.
So here's a funny little bit. Terraria has a lot of craftable items. We have many materials that you can make almost anything out of. And one of the endgame weapons is a broken hero sword that you can then merge with two of the most iconic swords in the game to create something called the Terra Blade. It used to be like the endgame sword that a lot of people like really looked up to. It had really nice colors that felt Terraria, and it's named Terra Blade. Now, in a later update, we decided to let you use the broken hero sword with a toilet because we added like 40 different styles of toilet out of marble, gold, all that. And now we have the Terra toilet. And somebody actually decided to make a prop out of it in real life and showed it to us, and it's bizarre.
Oh, you got to get one for the house.
Is it fully functional?
I hope
It's
so.
iridescent even.
There was another question from Steven about do you find your productivity drops if somebody's watching over your shoulder? I thought this was interesting because this happens like to me all the time. As soon as somebody's watching, I feel like I instantly lose productivity and I'm not nearly as good at what I'm doing unless they're joining in and actually helping. If they're just watching and observing, doesn't help at all. If they're actually actively participating and have a good idea of what's going on, makes a huge positive difference. So it's kind of weird. It's like a big plus or a big minus depending on how they're watching, if they're just watching or actually engaging.
So what you're experiencing there is probably when your way of working is put under inspection, there is this social aspect of you don't want to do things that someone else disapproves of, and then your focus that gets taken away from what you're actually supposed to be doing. This is what usually would happen if someone is looking at you instead of engaging with you. And that's why your productivity may drop. Some people don't have that. They can get focused on what they need to without any problem, or they know that the person isn't judging them like that. But if you are concerned about these things, it might happen. There's also the people who don't just watch and they do engage, but not in a positive way. That's called backseat programming. And if it's not invited, usually you should tell the person to stop because they'll only get in the way, or it's uncomfortable and it's ruining your workflow. Each person is different, so make sure you politely tell them no if that's a problem.
Do you ever have this happen, Dave? People watching your code? Or you just kick them out, lock the door, pop them in the electric chair?
Yeah, I mean...
like, give me your feedback while you're strapped down.
I work remotely now for most of the stuff I do, but I do have to go into offices for clients every now and again to go and sit and teach or go and build something with them or build a team, etc. Yeah, no, if somebody's annoying me, I tell them to go away because usually I'm the boss. Job done. No, it really depends what they want to do. And as you said, if they're going to harm your productivity, then they shouldn't be doing it. But at the same time, when you're a junior at a company, you have to expect to be looked over a little bit, and you'll have code reviews and stuff like that. So get used to somebody coming in and looking at what you're doing and helping you. But they've got to be helping you is the main point to that. But no, I don't have anybody come in. I have a lock on that door behind me that you can see that basically is IoT, so I can lock it when a problem. And there's a big red light out there as well. So the light that sits outside my office turns red when I don't want anybody to come in and disturb me.
Real life do not disturb sign.
Yep. And again, that's IoT. So I could literally press a button on my Stream Deck and the red light comes on and it says do not disturb. Because when you're in the zone, it's the worst. You're in the zone, you're really getting into it, you've been coding, you've got the thing in your head, you've got it all mapped out, you're putting it onto Visual Studio, and then somebody comes in and goes, "What are you doing? Can we go somewhere? What are you doing?" And then that becomes a problem. But no, I mean, I've worked in plenty of offices where it can be a problem. I used to have a sign on my desk that would tell people to politely go away. And Jason knows me; it wasn't polite at all. It would tell somebody to F off. Because sometimes you just got to get work done, especially if you're a tools programmer. You're constantly getting bugged by people to do stuff.
Oh, yeah. Tools programming. Every person at the company wants something from you. There's something you can do to help everybody, at least if you're doing your job right.
Somebody
Somebody
mentioned pair programming. It kind of came in a little bit after. I mean, I don't know when it actually started as a thing, but I wasn't really there for pair programming.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, personally. I know a lot of people that love it. I never really got a chance to do an awful lot of it.
It depends a lot on who you're pairing with and how interested they are and how open they are. But if they're like into it and open to just like, if their goals are the same, that they want to make good code and improve, and that they're okay knowing that like everything they did isn't going to be perfect and they're going to get some advice on how to make it better, it tends to work really, really well because you're like constantly productive and constantly doing the best version of the code instead of the okay version of the code. It's like you always have, at least in my experience, a better final product because there's always somebody there watching, and you always kind of like know there's somebody watching. And like when you think about taking a shortcut, you usually kind of stop when you're pairing. The shortcuts disappear, is what I found.
So I'm going to put two hot takes here. One, if you're not good at pair programming, you probably should do it more because this is what will open you up against the productivity drop when anyone watches, because you're going to get used to it and you're going to see it in a new light, probably, eventually, depending on how resilient you are to change. But the next hot take is, I've had a bit of an opposite experience. You get code that works when you pair program, but depending on who you work with, sometimes you just want to see the thing actually doing the work in the end of the day, and you'll cut some corners to make sure it works. But that's why we have sentences like make it work, make it good, and then make it fast, because you know that you want it working first, and it still has to be good by the end of the day. But pair programming really is great to open someone up, especially new people. If you're bringing someone new to the team, just getting to sit with them, see how they work, giving them tips maybe to make their work a bit better. When I started in Terraria, we didn't do exactly pair programming, but we talked as we worked together because it was a remote job. And I didn't know how to use breakpoints and debug at the time. I was fresh out of the military, so... I was good at writing code and I understood what's going on, but I didn't actually debug at runtime, and I didn't even know about edit and continue. And someone just brought it up like casually, and I was like, my workflow is like 10 times faster, just like that.
Just from stumbling on it, yeah.
Yeah, for tips from anyone, like what you mentioned about Unity lists too. That's like another thing that comes up like really casually and can change your workflow forever.
I totally agree. So yeah, let people watch and try doing some pair programming. I think it's important to pair. I really enjoyed it. Oh, this wasn't the question I wanted to pop up because I don't have an answer to that one. This one, I have a question. How do you create a ragdoll with only the arms? Somebody here should know that. You guys ever make a ragdoll where only the arms ragdoll? Seems pretty simple.
Yeah. Just so I mean, Unity has automated ragdoll tools.
Yeah, so
but that's not a ragdoll. That's an active ragdoll. Big difference.
Yeah, okay.
So an active ragdoll is a ragdoll that tries to physically match an animation. And to do that, conceptually, what you need is two sets of things. You need the actual ragdoll with all the physics enabled, and then you also need a model that does the proper animation that the ragdoll should be aiming towards. Now, there's a lot of physical calculations that go on, and that's why there's a bazillion stabilization solutions that don't really look all that fantastic, because it's really, it's a rabbit hole. Now, if you're talking about just the arms, it doesn't really matter because it's going to be the same thing in the end of the day. There are parts, they are affected by physics. They need to resist those physics to match a certain pose. And to do that, you only need a limb of a chain of limbs. Just could be game objects with rigid bodies and then the constraints. How does Unity call them? I forgot the name. There's like a free constraint and God, I forgot the name. I keep thinking of Blender. Does anyone remember the proper name?
On the joints.
Yeah, joints. Yeah, that.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's just about a bunch of rigid bodies and joints, and then you apply forces that make something go into the proper rotation usually, to get the things looking right. So, for example, if the arm needs to stand at a 90-degree angle like this, you'll say this part has to try and add torque until it's like that, and then this part, if you want it like this or that, you just try to make sure it matches. And it's going to be a bit of a physical calculation hell, and you're going to have to figure out exactly what you're doing, but you can do it. Just joints and forces.
And Andrew sent over this asset that looks like it might do a very similar thing or almost exactly.
Maybe. I just saw this the other day. This is that from Impossible Creations, which we've seen a lot of their assets before. This one's brand new. And it sounded, when you were talking, it sounded like this is basically using, it looks like the built-in ragdoll system, but maybe making it easier to set up and then work with various rigs and adding forces and stuff. So
there's also another there's also another asset from Root Motions, the one who make the full body character IK asset,
Puppet
the
Master.
final IK. I'm trying to open it right now so I can
Puppet Master. Oh, yeah, Puppet
Master.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot the name. Yeah, blacked out on that. Yeah, fantastic assets. Probably will do 90% of what you want them to do, or 0% of the work.
Don't spend $14,000 on it. Just build it yourself. Jason, you muted.
Just spend 3,000 on the 3D printer that makes all the parts for you, and then the hours worth of 11,000.
A lot of steel as well, aluminium extrusions and stuff.
Fumes? What's that? Is it tasty?
All right.
So
Go ahead.
Somebody did ask if you can make. Oh, go on.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, somebody was asking whether you can make a game yourself or do you have to be in a team. That was a little while ago, actually.
Yeah, I remember that one. You can make
Nobody can make a game on their own.
Make a game yourself? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you're standing on the shoulders of giants. I mean, there are people who say, well, if you're going to do that, you have to make your own engine. But if you have to do that, you really should write your own language and build your own computer and mine your own minerals. But yeah, I made a game by myself, and I was terrible. And the code was horrible. It still runs, though, perfectly fine. And better now because devices are so much faster. So no issues now.
Yeah, you definitely can make a game on your own. I mean, not as easily as with the team, and not as good as with the team probably, but definitely make it on your own. And sometimes having a team actually just makes things slower and worse, to be fair. Like, there are certainly scenarios where you could do it faster on your own. You add in people and everything falls apart.
Yeah, and it depends what game you're going to be making. If you're making a small puzzle yourself, then fine. I mean, there was that guy who recently published like a full-scale FPS with samurai swords. I can't remember what the name was, but that was amazing looking.
I think it's called Right Memory.
Something like that. But it was an amazing game. Did it all on his own.
Yeah,
that's fine. I expect he used some assets, but yeah, it was an amazing game. But it's really just scope, timeline, and what you want to do. I've made plenty of games on my own, and I've made plenty of games with teams. I wouldn't have made half the games I made with teams on my own because it would have taken forever.
It certainly gets a lot easier to make games on your own once you've made them with other people, though. At least in my experience, it feels a lot easier because you got a good idea of just what to do and a bit of practice and experience and guidance.
And if you're just starting out, a good idea would be to go to some game meetups and groups and stuff like that and get involved in there, because if you're just starting out and you're making a game on your own, it's nice to qualify what you're doing with other people that might have done it before, if you haven't got access to a team. So I'm a big proponent of going to meetup and joining groups just to find out what other people are doing and just to hang out with like-minded people.
Me too. I hope they start appearing in person again. I don't know. What was this one, Uri?
So Bright Memory is
Bright Memory.
game. Yeah, that's the game
Is
David
the
mentioned.
solo one?
Yeah, that's one good example, and I think that's one in Unreal. And there is also another one that's being in development right now that we mentioned previously, but it's called Morbid Metal, which is made in Unity HDRP, which also looks really nice. But yeah,
these are single player developers. So these single people developers is pretty good.
Solo developers.
Yeah, that's nuts. So, Dave, there was a question on how much your simulator costs to build. If somebody wanted to build that on their own and they didn't buy the most expensive equipment to print the parts with and stuff, what's a rough ballpark estimate on that? Are we looking at like $500, $5,000, $50,000?
So the simulator you see here doesn't have the arms on or anything. There's articulated arms that come on it, and it's a much bigger thing. In fact, I can find a video somewhere in a minute for that, and Jason can pop that up. So you can be cheap and you can build a lot of the parts yourself, but the problem comes where you have to have the tools to then build things. Like, you could do stuff with a hand drill, but you're better off having a drill press for a lot of that stuff, because you get a lot more accurate. But again, it's going to cost you a lot more money to do it. Custom aluminium extrusions, you could basically have them do all the cuts yourself for the angles and everything, but that will cost more for them to do it. Or if you're going to build a lot of them, get yourself a chop saw, put yourself a metal blade on it, and away you go. Just buy them in bulk and cut it up. This one doesn't use pneumatics. It uses motors, stepper motors, to move the various points. It's got 15 degrees in pitch, 15 degrees in roll, 15 degrees in pitch, and 15 degrees in yaw. So actually, I think it's got 20 in pitch, 20 in roll, can't remember, and 15 in yaw. So that's a free DOF. You can go down to 2DOF simulator and just do the pitch and roll, because yaw is a lot more work. I wouldn't recommend going straight into something that does yaw, because you're moving the entirety of the body with the bits that do the pitch and do the roll as well. And then you'll need a PSU, a power supply unit, that then powers those motors. You can buy them off the shelf, and I would recommend doing that rather than trying to wire your own if you haven't got a lot of experience, because you'll end up burning your house down. So do that, and then buy an Arduino to then send signals to the relays that work the motors that do the various parts. Ballpark figure, you can build a simple 2DOF or even just a rumble pack simulator. So a simulator that just gives you motion through rumbling on various axes. That could be quite cheap. You can probably do that for about $1,000, but then you're going up to like 10, 15 grand for the high end. And then one with articulated arms and all the rest of it, you have to pay the patent holder a license fee for those if you're going to do it commercially. And I'd be very happy about that, because I own the patents. Sorry. But yeah, I mean, all of that stuff, it starts to add up after a while. There's a company called 8020 that actually does aluminium extrusions. It's all the aluminium extrusions I use for a lot of my engineering projects, like this whole office that moves up and down, and a lot of the simulator parts. But yeah, it gets expensive, and then you've got all the tooling on top of that. And then the 3D printer. 3D printers aren't as expensive as a lot of people think. You can buy a really good 3D printer for under $1,000 now.
And can you buy like cheap? I know, like with racing simulators, you can buy those online for relatively cheap. They're not the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Can you do something similar for like a mech simulator? Is there like an Amazon Basics version of it that kind of gets the job done, but doesn't? If you're not going the $15,000 version.
No, there isn't. And mech simulators don't exist because they're very, very complex to build and make. Bandai Namco has a mech simulator, but they don't sell it. They use it for location-based entertainment that just uses joysticks. So you use joysticks to move the arms and the guns and everything about, and they're fixed place. But to have something that actually has arms that do all this, it's a big, big project. It will take a lot of time. It will cost a lot of money. No, I say just license one off a company like,
or just buy 2 joysticks. Just get 2 joysticks, put on a Quest, and then program it in Unity for 5 million hours.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is you can, if you put on a VR headset and you've got the controllers, you can do a mech simulator with a lot of things standing up. There's a few out there that actually mech games that do that. But yeah, for the full experience of building out all this mechanics and everything, it can get quite expensive.
I just want to say that it was amazing that you managed to go for this entire talk without mentioning RGB. And then I'm just looking at Jason.
Yeah, you got no RGBs on your simulator right now.
There are no, because it's a VR simulator. As soon as you put yourself in the headset, you can't see anything. So it's
yeah, but I know the impact of going to sit there, just watching the chair.
we have illustrations of the people of it at location based things, because this is for a company. I have 2 companies. One's Warped Imagination, one's Ultimate Mechanics. Ultimate Mechanics is a company that specializes in prototyping far out there ideas for virtual reality and location based entertainment, like simulated weaponry. We have our own guns and everything that have recoil and reloading and all the rest, and we have mech simulators and kiosks and stuff like that, and we obviously license things out to people. But yeah, I don't know what the question was. RGB. Yeah, we have concept pictures for people standing there watching people in this, and they have lighting and the rest. We not RGB and flashing lights like light shows or anything like that, but more things that are person's firing a gun, therefore lights are going off. Also light warning lights, because these things move, so you don't want to be standing near it when somebody's swinging a big articulated arm around.
You don't want to get hit with that?
No, you don't. You also don't want to get into it and forget to put the emergency stop button on when you're testing something. So I made a prototype on that simulator, and it has big. These I wish they were on at the moment, but they're big metal articulated arms, and I'll get a video for it in a minute. You move them about, and they're not light. And I usually have an emergency stop button that can stop it. So when I'm coding it, but I was coding something and I forgot to put it in, and I turned it off. I think I commented it out because I was doing something else.
So the button's there, just not the code to actually stop, huh?
And then basically it's going like this, moving about, and then suddenly I went, oh, that's not right. I'm going to have to stop it. And I had to wait for the entire sequence to go through, and felt pretty motion sick because I'd accidentally put the axis the wrong way around. So when the game was going one way, the motion simulator was going the other way, and that's extreme motion sickness in no time at all. So whipping off the VR headset and then just sitting there with this thing going like that while you're trying to get over motion sickness to the point of trying to jump out of it, because you can't, if these arms swing and hit you in the head, you're going to feel it. And annoyingly, we used to do a lot of the tests with 2 people in the room, but one of my guys had gone into the other room to work on a CNC machine, so he couldn't hear a thing that was going on. And me going, help. This wasn't getting to anyone, there. So yeah. So
at least it didn't run for days. It was a short sequence, right?
It
Just
was
picture
a short
your wife
sequence.
finding you there like 3 days later.
This is why you make.
I don't want to kill any more aliens.
This is why you make them short experiences and not full-fledged games.
Yeah, and also why you actually put the hardware emergency button on and not just stick to the
software.
The software button. Here you go. I found the video and the timing. If you want to pop that up and put that full screen, people can actually see it moving. But yeah, so yeah, hardware buttons for motion simulators are definitely a thing that you should use. I think this
is be able to get out, huh? Emergency exit.
Yeah.
As I've been doing all this electrical shit, I've been putting everything on surge protectors before I turn it on, just so I don't blow myself up.
So that's articulated arms and everything. But yeah, so that just gives you an idea of some of the movement.
Nice.
I don't know if
Get
there's
these
anything
things
else on
smacking you in the head.
Yeah, that's very early days. That's a few years ago.
And these are the ones that you said you had printed covers to essentially cover all of this metal.
There are printed covers now. Yeah, I'm not going to pick them up because they're all in a.
But hey, this kind of shows why you would want those printed covers.
Yeah,
Like,
because they're
on
a
your
pitch
final
points.
version, you don't want to stick your finger in there, or a kid or whatever walks in there. Easy to hurt yourself. So
yeah,
it's a 3D printer to the rescue.
That was super fun to build. The Ultra Mechanics team is a great set of guys working on this.
It's very cool stuff. Yeah, I got to try that thing out once. I want to try it again soon once you got it all put back together.
Yeah. Well, we're making some changes to it at the moment, hooking it into some other systems. So we'll have different game types running on it. There's at the moment the only two things on it are a turret shooter that you see the concept art for there, and then there's the mech simulator where you actually move around in a giant mech, which is pretty sweet. But yeah, eventually Gundams and all the rest of it will be on there.
It's very cool.
Yep. Looks fantastic.
That guy looks familiar.
Yeah. And that's the really cheesy game that I built for it in a month to basically run the demo for this thing to make sure it was a good idea to do.
It's just cool. I need a simulator now. I need need more space. I need a workshop where I can put a simulator and a printer. That's the problem. I need to take over your workshop, Dave. Or take over my wife's gym. I think I'd have an easier time taking over your workshop than my wife's gym.
Yeah, I think probably would, yeah.
Oh, man. Does somebody call that? Was Stardew Valley made by one person?
Yes, initially at least. So Concerned Ape is the alias of the person who made Stardew Valley. I think the full name is Eric Barone or something like that. And he worked on the game for a few years. I think it was years before the game came out. I think Newt and Chucklefish acted as the publishing company to help him out with making this for consoles and also improving the code to run on those other platforms. Also, recently they had the game updated for Monogame, which is a whole engine change from XNA to Monogame, just so they can future-proof more. So that's nice to hear about. Caring about the community, making content, etc., etc. Because XNA is limited to only 4 gigabytes of memory, and if you want to have a big game with tons of content, etc., etc., it's going to pile up.
Is Monogame still pretty actively supported?
Yes, I think they actually have PS5 support in the working. So.
Oh, okay, nice. And that's like for people who don't know, that's like the open source kind of port of XNA, right?
Yeah. It's more like a continued implementation. They're not identical, but they have the same namespaces and mostly the same things. If you have your game code, you can mostly port it from XNA to Monogame relatively easy. So yeah, that's really nice. Also, if we're talking about low developer count in making games, Hollow Knight was only made by 2 developers initially as a Ludum Dare, I think, and then they hired an artist, and just the 3 of them managed to make the entire game. So you can get the awards out of very small amounts of people, but it needs the passion and the hard work. So
yeah, the passion part's important, which actually is a perfect segue into one of the other topics I wanted to hit, which was the Steam Awards and for instance, the Labor of Love game right here, Terraria, that I'd already voted for. So have you guys been going through these Steam Awards yet and decided what to vote on? I'm still trying to decide my final votes because I haven't played I've probably played maybe a third of the games total. Have you guys gone through these yet? Maybe we'd go through with chat and let everybody in chat pick my votes for me.
That's no fun. You need to get informed and then make your own decisions.
VR game of the year. Well, I just go off my subscribers' decisions. They'll be my source of information. Let me know what the best VR game is. Sniper Elite I have played, and I played Expect You to Die. I have not played any of these others.
Also, if we're talking
No.
about things that are interesting here, the game of the year, they're voting Valheim. That was only 5 developers initially, I think. Published by Coffee Stain, I think.
Is that this
Yeah.
would write better with friends? Oh, what?
Yeah. No, game of
Wrong
the
button.
year. It's voted for multiple categories. So
Okay. So best game you suck at, best soundtrack, outstanding story. Rich.
game of the year is the top. So
Was it at the top? Did I miss it?
yeah, the very first award.
Oh yeah, I
There
scrolled
you go.
right past it somehow. Okay.
Yep,
Oh yeah, so
Valheim.
yeah, Valheim.
Yep,
Or there's
straight
New
up
World
there.
or Cyberpunk. Now this I've played these 3. I'm gonna go with number 1.
All really big games, and then you have Valheim made by a really small amount of developers, but
Yeah.
really passionate, really good execution.
Yeah.
This is definitely one people should check out if they haven't already.
Hopefully, we'll have a wave
I
of
haven't-
indie winners.
I haven't reopened Cyberpunk for quite a while. I played it. I opened it up, went not ready yet, and then put it back down and never reopened it. But I will
On
do.
launch day, that's about when I
yeah.
did that. I think it was like within the first 3 days. I played it for a couple hours. I was like, "Yep, nope, I'll try it
Not
later."
yet. I'll come back.
You guys managed to get ours? I played it for like 40 minutes, and it legitimately it blue screened me, and that was the
Yeah.
first blue screen I had on my computer.
I was so looking forward to it that I let it blue screen twice before I went, no, enough's enough. It blue screened just as a car jumped off the road and smashed through all the cutscene that I was currently in, and I was like, no, actually, I'm gonna come back to this another day. And it lost my saves as well at one point on the first day, so I was just like, no, I'm done. I'm not gonna do it.
You know, the best thing that came out of Cyberpunk for me was the whole set of videos about all the bugs it has.
Yeah.
It's like a genuine joy to watch and guess how the heck did it get to that situation.
I hear they fixed most of it now, so I'm really looking forward to it. And good on them for sticking with it to get it done.
Yeah,
like
it's definitely not easy mentally to keep up with that.
No. The VR game of the year you've got. Oh, you had VR game of the year.
Right here.
Yeah, I haven't played. Funnily enough, I'm a big shooter fan, but I haven't played either of the shooters on there, and I've got no interest in Blair Witch. But the Expect You to Die, good. Cooking Simulator VR, weirdly, I enjoy those, and I probably shouldn't, but yeah.
Sounds like something I would enjoy, but I haven't tried it out yet. I'll have to maybe I'll give it another try. Go try this one out. I actually need to pull out my Quest 2 and give it another run. So maybe I'll try some of these out and make a slightly more informed opinion on these ones. What about Labor of Love? Any opinions here? Suggestions, recommendations?
I've got.
I already voted for mine.
Thank you.
My kid here would probably vote for Rust. It's his new favorite or his long-term favorite. But these are your top 2 for sure.
Rust is very, very good.
Yeah, all these games are very, very good. That's why they're here.
No, true. Yeah, I can give you that. Yeah. They're very, very good. No Man's Sky, another one that started off on launch day where everyone went, but now everybody's talking about going back to it. So.
I was going to ask about that.
Underrated. As underrated. That was one of the biggest things for the year. The amount of shenanigans that happened with this game. I mean,
I
it all
never
boils
got
down
around to
to
playing it.
You're good on you. You're way better off now trying it than prior.
Yeah.
One of the big controversies it has is when the game was announced, the developer explicitly said there would be multiplayer on launch, and there wasn't. And that became a whole fiasco, and there was a bunch of controversies about age labeling and refunds, etc., etc. But they're now the greatest redemption story of the game industry, in quotations. So do with that what you will. They do keep updating it. It does get legitimately good.
Nice. I'm going to try it out. It actually looks kind of cool. So now that it's not, and it has mostly positive reviews, which is good. I'm going to have to give it a try. I remember seeing
it started really... Keep in mind, it started really negatively, but the current situation is very positive on 92% in the recent month. So it's just working its way up from the start.
Yeah, it was a big mess when they launched, and I think there was like they were pretending that it was multiplayer, even like people trying to
Yeah.
like loosely say that maybe it is multiplayer, and you just haven't found the people and shit. Like, what the fuck? Getting called out. So, but yeah, I definitely want to try that one out.
Yeah, I don't think you deserve money points for fixing mistakes that you intentionally made happen, but they do keep updating it, so it is honest work to agree.
Yeah, I'll come back
in the
on
better
with
if
you.
Yeah, on better if wins, there's quite a lot to choose from, but I mean, we have the Game Awards winner here, It Takes Two, and also Valheim again. And I want to say Valheim has a really strong honeymoon phase, which I think is why it gets so much attention. The first few hours feel legitimately inspiring and good and fun. It's just the end game that gets to drag on quite a bit for me.
I went with Halo here, and the only reason is I've been really enjoying it with friends at the moment, but I really want to get into It Takes Two. I just haven't got around to it yet.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I want to play it.
And also, we have the game from Danny here. Crap game. That's by Danny.
Oh.
Yeah.
What? Okay, let's add this to my wish list. I didn't realize he made this. Check it out.
He has a whole video on it on YouTube. You should go watch that.
Yeah, apparently I didn't see that. I will have to check this out. Neat. Okay, I'm gonna close that before I get a copyright strike or something. The music. All right, so I'm gonna go vote for that one. That makes sense. All right, outstanding visual style.
No, that was well, they're all amazing.
I haven't played any of these.
Yeah, they all look pretty damn good.
So one of the victories here is that you get to see the visual style from the straight up footage that you get here.
I mean, Forza is just a marvelous piece of work. Visually, it's stunning, absolutely stunning. But Little Nightmares #1 was, for me, really tasty. Like just the visuals of it. Yeah. I haven't played Little Nightmares 2 though. So
I'm gonna vote for Subnautica. I bet.
Okay.
The graphs and Forza just didn't look real enough for me.
Really?
It wasn't blowing in the wind, right? I could tell those blades weren't bending. So. No, and Subnautica, definitely. I'm basing 100% off the little video clips here, and having played Subnautica a little bit before. But yeah, okay. What about most innovative gameplay? This one's going to be hard to judge from the video.
Yeah.
I haven't got around to playing any of these yet.
You're ring out.
I know. 12 minutes has been a lot of people have been talking to me about that one. So I've got to get that one down.
Yeah, I have specifically not heard that many good things about 12 minutes, but I have played a ton of Loop Hero, and big fan of Loop Hero. It's the most innovative gameplay that I got to experience out of all of these, at least how it felt. The others felt like they rely more on other aspects except the gameplay for their uniqueness. But Loop Hero is like a really nicely executed reverse tower defense. Which is something Yeah.
Interesting. Huh.
Well, it's what I would call it, at least.
I'm going to try that
got
one
it on my wish list.
Huh. Best game you suck at? I already voted here.
Battlefield 2042 is the game.
You can't vote for that one, Andrew, because you won.
Shoot. I haven't played the other, so I don't know which one I would suck at most.
Well, you haven't played. Clearly, you have no experience.
So there's really only one I can vote for there.
Apparently, games have sound, so there's a category.
Wow. Seriously.
They play music or something in there? I got no idea here. I always play on mute.
Well, I enjoyed the anime Demon Slayer, so.
And I think it deserves a vote. They've liked it.
Oh, really? Because I like the anime? I don't know about
that. Seems like a good reason
nice
to vote for it.
I want to say that on the visual style for that, it's nice that there is honest delivery of the anime visuals into the game.
Yeah.
That's like something to not be taken for granted. A lot of shader
I didn't
work
even know there was a game for it, though, so.
Oh, you're really missing out. There are a lot of good anime games.
Yeah, I know. We talk about this offline. We should bring that up public. Everybody listen to what we're talking about on anime-wise. Story-rich games. I haven't played half of these either. I've really been lax this year.
Well, you've probably played at least one of them. Mass Effect.
Oh, yeah, Cyberpunk and Mass Effect I've played.
Yeah.
But not the Legendary Edition.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a remaster.
It's the same thing.
It's a remaster, so it's the same story, different experience.
Never finished it.
That's a different story.
Yeah.
I do want to say that on a technical level, making story-rich games is absolute hell, and I have huge appreciation to anyone who wants to go for it, because you have to make so many systems just to portray the story properly in these kinds of games. Like accounting for all the different scenarios that the players can face, making huge dialogue systems, including facial expressions and events that go into those, making all those events serialize information that's relevant properly. It's a whole gigantic mess of systems just to make a good story, good, compelling first-person experience story. Third person gets a bit of slack because you get actors you can control to make the entire scene without interaction a bit easier, but first-person games, absolute tarnation.
All right, I'm trying to get my giveaway app up and running, but it's not loading. I got a nice fat Unity crash here. My Unity window, it doesn't even show the process running. I gotta go dig in and kill this thing. Nice. Scroll down to the next one. Losing my windows though. Anybody got thoughts on the sit back and relax? Dorf Romantic?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed Dorf Romantic. However, I have recently got Townscaper as well. Yeah, I haven't booted it up yet, so because it looks very, very similar. But yeah, I really enjoyed Dorf Romantic.
I will say that I don't play games to sit back and relax. To sit back and relax, I actually read books. So when I play games, I want the most action-heavy things I can find. I don't think I played a chill game in forever, and that would be funnier to say that I count Terraria as a chill game. So
play very hardcore, competitive, fast-paced stuff most of the time.
I don't play competitive stuff as much. I do play things that have competitive potential, though, a lot. I like really heavy button engagement. Honkai Impact is my jam, but you won't be finding it here.
Did somebody just literally write Dark Souls is a nice way to relax?
Yes,
they did.
Might need to go and see something about
that. No. Actually, really slow if you look into properly. You press very little amount of actions, and everything can be easily discerned. It's a watch game, and click one right button at the proper time. Of course, if you don't want to do that, you can just panic and roll like crazy, lose all your stamina, and get stabbed in the back 50 times over. Yeah.
All right, so I want to kick off the Rider giveaway in just a minute and give away a free Rider code for a year license, thanks to JetBrains, to somebody who's in chat. So we'll start that in just a minute once my project loads. But there was a question that Hilton asked that popped up, and I think this was asked once earlier too, about trees. And I was curious, did you have any other examples of how you use that tree data structure that we talked about in games? Has anybody come up with any other thoughts or ideas on that? And if not, maybe we'll come up with something for next week. But I haven't been able to come up with a good example. I've seen that question a couple times so far.
Well, so the easiest example was already covered by you, actually, which is the auto-completion. So if your game has a lot of content and there is a search bar, like a wiki or etc., and you want to save on performance looking for information through that wiki, you could do it through a tree of writing names. You could also make branching events structured in a tree just so it's easier to conceptualize. Like, say, if the player didn't get to do an action, the game branches into one way and then the game branches into another way. That's a bit more conceptual rather than the programming, but still works, especially if you do need presentation for it in the game. I think Shadow the Hedgehog, one of the classics, had an actual tree presented for the story levels that you progress through. Not necessarily need a tree structure for that, but it's still there. Again, it's a bit more of a niche collection, but it's more about when you have a lot of identifiers and they bring into a unique search.
I wonder if anybody in chat. Oh yeah, A-Star. That's a good example right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a graph. Yeah. To be fair, a graph isn't always a tree, though. So it depends on which one you're looking at.
Oh, yeah, that's another fair point. All right, well, I got no other examples there, so I'm going to set up.
I'm trying to remember one. It's just really difficult. I know what I'm thinking of, but I forgot. Sorry.
No. I'm just pulling up. I'm going to grab our live chat. So one of the things I haven't added into this program yet is a way to actually grab the live chats and see which one is active. Oops. And get the ID and put that in. So I have to like manually go through there. It's going to be one of my next things is actually building out maybe a little API wrapper to allow me to do exactly that, to just hit the YouTube API and call a couple things. I think like it'd be a nice, handy thing to have, and I could add it in here so I can just see the chat and then select it instead of right now I'm going through in another window using the API debugger to find the live chat ID and then copying and pasting it into some hard-coded stuff. So I'd like to get away from that, and I think that would be a fun little experiment in like building an actual API and showing how to build an API. Maybe make a quick video out of that. First, I have to find my
So while you're doing that, somebody actually mentioned a really good example of using trees, the octree for special partitioning in games. It's a bit of a complicated topic, but basically it boils down to you want to be able to search things in really small areas and divide them into higher levels of detail just in where you are compared to where everything is, as an example. So areas that you're not nearby will get split into really big single nodes, and then the areas you are in will get split into smaller, higher fidelity nodes that can hold more information. And that's a really good way to show usage of trees, I guess.
Yeah, that's one I hadn't thought of. Octrees, quadtrees, common one to use.
It's also used in animation, by the way. Quadtrees are used in motion matching, where you say, from this animation, what are the closest animations to that pose to make the instant hop over to that other animation frame. So yeah, that's another really good example.
All right, so everybody who wants to win a copy of Rider, feel free to just enter the giveaway. We'll just run it through. Everybody will automatically battle, and whoever is alive at the end will win the copy of Rider. I have a couple codes from our Friday giveaway to send out, so I'll send them all out at once, probably shortly after this call. So if you win, just send me an email with your username, and we'll get you the code. But if you want to enter, you've got to first pick your race and your class, because there's no reason to have a simple giveaway. You got to keep it nice and complicated and lots of code. So you can choose from the knight, the lizard, the rat, and all the other options that are on there, and then choose if you want to be a DPS, a mage, a tank, or nothing. Just be a normal old boring no class with no special modified stats at all. And I have no idea which one's the most powerful. I don't remember.
Did you mess with the balance again?
I didn't touch it. Who won last time? Was it a rat? I guess it was was it a DPS or a tank? I can't remember.
I think it was a tank.
Was it a tank? Okay. Well, we'll
Sure.
see. We'll have a good idea by the end of this. So, if you want to win, if you don't want to win, but you want to battle, just enter anyway because you probably won't win. And if you win, we can give it to the second place person if you don't want it.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
What's DPS mean?
Damage per second. It's just a very generic DPS class. It doesn't. Yeah, it should probably get an actual name. Maybe turn it into a. I don't know. There was an assassin, but I had to make it mage because I couldn't spell assassin right and get the S's counted.
Ninja.
Well,
you can.
Ninja.
Warrior.
There you go.
Yeah. Ninja, warrior, make your pick. Then again, warrior knight sounds a bit redundant. Title?
Isn't the tank the warrior?
Be like
we got to figure it out. Archetypes or
yeah.
Thief.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, yeah, rogue. Insert
rogue,
other words. Gunner.
Yeah, it seems like knight should actually be up top.
Yeah,
yes. It just happened to be one of the character models, and the races are all named after the character models.
It is what it is.
I named a whole game after the character model I got from the asset store. So
that sounds like something I would do. I'm with you. All right, if you want to enter to win, now's the chance. So there's 37 of the 90 or so people that are here watching. Make sure you hit the like button and share when you enter for extra bonus nothing, but it'd be cool anyway.
So
go ahead.
Here's a fun question. Who here has a project named Asset Store Import Hill?
I have temp projects. It's called temp in my projects folder. But now there's that. Have you seen the new button on there to import assets into a temporary project?
I have not yet.
I think I saw that with package manager stuff. Yeah,
I haven't used it yet, but yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, it'll take like a package from the asset store and actually just create a temp project, and it'll do the project creation and dump the asset in there, just so you don't have to hit the new project and import it. It's kind of cool.
You know,
always open an asset store project in a different project than your main one, or make sure you've checked everything else in first before you open it, because experience.
And definitely look at what you're importing. Don't just click import. Look at the list first. And decide if you really want all the stuff, because oftentimes you won't.
I actually have a small horror story here. So I imported a bunch of assets into one Booth import hell. There is a site called Booth PM which sells a lot of assets. It's a Japanese store compared to the asset store, and not all of them are for Unity, but some of them are. And I imported a bunch of packages into one project there because I wanted to test out all these assets. And I ended up with the most unique error I've had, where no prefab saving works. I literally can't save prefabs.
Oh, because you've got a busted script on it.
Yeah, and that's something that I haven't tackled until
such
recently.
a pain. It's such a pain. Yeah.
Package of conflict. So
I have a temporary folder called Playground, and I just open projects in there, test everything in there, even if it's just a character, because sometimes you'll find that somebody packaged that character with their own project settings, and then suddenly it overloads your project settings. You're like, what did you do? Why are none of my physics right anymore?
Yeah, and not all of them are like asset store authored, so your Unity package might contain things you don't expect.
Yep.
All right, there was an exception in the code, so that's why people stopped entering. Luckily, it just grabs chat again. So something failed in parsing some null reference. So I just added a try catch around it and a log so I can see what it is. Or we can debug it and just rerun. The benefit of reading chat is it'll just grab everybody and get the latest. So let's see if people can join now and change things. I'm curious what the error was, though. I did add a log around the exception. Failed to add D draws. There's a bunch of people.
Yeah, so it's probably failing after one fail happens. Something sequential, corrupt state or something. I don't know. I don't recall code that could fail though.
No, it's something in it building the character model. Something's not there, and I'm just trying to find the fire. I'm not sure what it is. I'd debug it afterwards. I don't want to try to debug it while we're live. Hopefully, the fight's still working. It seems like it's adding people. It's catching it.
Well, if it's failing to, yeah, if it's failing to add one specific model, it might actually try just another one or something.
Yes, it's possible people are picking a model that's having an issue. Yeah, I'm using the Google YouTube API to grab YouTube chat. If you're in there, I mean, you can just change your class name or your race, and you should see it pop up and tell you that you changed. Hopefully, everybody's in. I'm going to give it a couple more minutes, and then I'll hit the button, and we'll start. It's been fun, like building up an actual app to pick winners. Yeah. It's a lot more entertaining for me.
Yeah, we still need to prettify it though.
It's not pretty. I'm waiting on Salim's level design work to happen. He then started on it, but he ended up moving or going on a trip. Silly holidays and stuff.
You know, I have this unhealthy obsession where I see a project and I'm like, this needs to run at 120 FPS, even though I know I don't really need it. And all these animating models are killing me inside because I have no way I'm going to optimize it sometimes. Like in reasonable amount of time without changing the code drastically.
Sorry, we're getting still 50 frames a second. It runs great. Yeah. That's actually really terrible if you knew the hardware it's running.
Yeah, 2000 set pascals.
You need more? Yeah. You gotta increase that, right?
Rookie numbers, gotta pump those numbers up.
gotta get them up there.
Just add more RAM.
That's right. That's the problem.
More RAM.
All right, so if you want to enter, keep it. Now's your chance. I'm gonna, as soon as we get to 50 people, I'm gonna hit it, and then we'll see the top 50 can battle, or the first 50 can battle, and see who wins the writer license. Which is still, I think, my most recommended software out of everything that I use. Writer's the one that I would notice the most if I had to stop using it, outside of Unity, of course. Although Restream is getting up there now. All right, we got 49, so we just need one more player, and then we'll hit the button. Get started. Anybody, join in.
I will literally go on and do it myself if nobody does.
Say a rat or knight or mage or both, and you'll get a combination of them both. Like that tank werewolf that just appeared. All right, we got 50. I'm going to hit the button, and we'll get started. Okay. Oh, where's the start button? 3, 2, 1. There it is.
51, too many.
51 entries. Yeah. All right. Then everybody. Oh, the randomization. I haven't. It was Christmas, so I haven't done any code. I know I was being lazy. Got like 0 work done on Christmas. And we can watch the fight go.
This time there's only 1 DPS on stage.
Total?
No, I mean on the actual stage. Oh.
Let's see what we got. So we got lots of knights, 10 rats. I think knights the default.
Did Jason just win his round?
I hope so. Did I?
Don't know about that.
Yeah, you did.
It's rigged. We saw him change the code just a second ago.
I need to increase my critical strike chance. All right, let's see who wins this one. We got Skytex. Just entered too. And, knocked out the demon. And then other dev in the back. About to die. We need more death messages, by the way. We need more taunting messages. I figured it had to say something when they lost, so they knew they lost.
Longer death VFX and actual VFX in combat. Really important to drive this home.
Yes. So for the death VFX, I grabbed the whole folder of particles and I drug them onto the list. So it just randomly picks one. So there's a couple that look terrible, like some steam just floating in the air. I need to actually go through and probably pick some particles, but I figured to do that once you get some some real art going with Andrew. Andrew gives some low poly models in there, make them fancy. Then we can do particles that match.
I added them to the project. I just didn't do anything beyond that.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize they were in there. Did you already commit?
Yep, I think
Nice.
it's my first time ever. It was my first time committing anything. So.
Oh, okay. How have you guys been
issues.
liking plastic, by the way? The plastic SCM. I'm curious, like you guys and everybody in chat who's tried it out, because I've been using plastic now for a couple months and it seems pretty good, and I haven't had any issues. But how are you guys feeling about it?
Aside the Unity integration crashing on me, pretty good.
That's a big one, though, if it's crashing on you often.
Yeah.
I was still getting a null reference exception issue in the editor for some reason, and I don't know why. I reinstalled the whole project, so I still don't know why. But
interesting. Was it around plastic or something else?
It's in Unity. I think plastic, you have to do that in external application, right? That's the
No, you can do it in Unity.
No.
Oh, really?
You can do it.
Yeah, it's the integration's built right in. You don't have to leave the editor.
Yeah, there is that thing I mentioned with after downloading the project, updating it, you might want to close the editor and reopen it because it's installing packages and those don't reload properly. So that might be it, but that's about it. I can sit with you after and see what's going on.
I agree on the panning around the map, though. We should do that. There was a comment that after each battle, you should like zoom around and show people. I'd like to do that and get it kind of all showing so you can see where you are, if you're still in line and stuff, and just have fun. And somebody asked what light you use below the battlers, and you set that up.
That's
right? You're tell them
that's not a light. Not a light at all. That's a quad that's additive and has a texture and a color, and that's it. There's not a quad on the floor.
Use the light. Light's a lot more expensive than just dropping that down there. It looks like a light, though. I mean, it definitely gives off that appearance.
Yeah, it's mainly because of the low quality. I used the bending texture because that's what was in the project, and I didn't want to bother making one. So, just a bright circle.
But
it shows
you how. Dead. Yeah, well, it shows you how easily games you get through this, though.
Was it Tim or R. Smith? Which one?
R. Smith killed Jason Weimann.
I need like a little assassinate button in here. Start wiggling the pots or something.
What you really want to do is expose the stats, and then you can actually raise your stats.
He already does that.
Yeah, that's hard coded in. Yeah, the hard coded. If your name starts with Jason, you get a bonus.
It's like the Josh fight, but just Jason's because the Jason meta.
We got how many people are left? 11 fighters left. Let's see who wins this.
Looks like all the mages are getting called out.
Are the mages dying? Yeah, it's looking like watch mage win though. Yellow tanks are in the lead again.
Yeah, because tank meta.
Yeah, we're gonna have to make it so mages one-shot tanks. They just make it rock paper scissors, so they all have to choose at the beginning.
But they can see each other's color, so everybody making last-minute changes is going to mess everything up.
Yeah, they got to make their changes right when the round's starting is the last second. Be the race to pick the right one. They got to add racial bonuses now since they're all the same. Man, too many things to do.
Feature create.
And they're gonna pledge as well, aren't they?
Yeah, that's actually in. It just doesn't give any bonuses yet. So you can actually just say somebody's name in here, and it will pledge you to them. If you say Dave, it pledges you to Dave, and you get the Dave bonus. Just right now, everybody's bonus is set to 0, and it doesn't show on screen. I wasn't sure what the best way to show it is. I think just a picture of our heads over them. I'm good.
We just need to make it so that if you do pledge to Dave, you get articulated arms added to your character.
That does make a lot of sense. And they should get an axe if they go for Andrew. Just get like a big barbarian axe.
There you go. I
like it.
Sword with blend shapes that change depending on the user.
Yep.
All right, this has gotten a lot easier. We just give them weapons. The pledge is just a weapon. Get robot arms or an axe. And these will fit perfectly onto your models, Andrew.
They will.
Put it on the worm's mouth. Just holding it in its teeth.
Holding a sword. That would be hilarious. I have to put it in there now just for fun. All right, this battle's almost over. Let's see how many we got left. One person on the sideline and 6 still fighting. So, I guess one of the things I wanted to show sometime, I think this week on a video or a stream, was this game development stuff that I've been playing around with on these panels. So those little RGB panels. Did I show it to you already? Pull one up. I just wanted to bring this up while they fight to ask for some ideas. So building it on these little 8x32 panels. And I made a little Pong game, and I made a little platformer where you can run around and jump. And basically, like you see your little dude is a 4-square block and running and jumping on things. But do you guys have any other good ideas for things I can do that are super low resolution games that would be fun and interesting in that pixel form? Snake was one of the ones I've started.
Okay. Multiplayer racer.
Mazes.
Because you're gonna have it round you're gonna have it round your actual room. So have each dot a racer that just races around. That is a great
fucking idea. I love it.
Here's the last battle.
I build video
Final fight. Yeah, that's a great. Yeah, have them racing around. Oh yeah, and then a snake going around would be cool too. But I think the racing all the way around good idea, Dave.
Do the snake and then do machine learning.
Yeah, train it.
Oh, this battle's going to the end here.
Close, Abraham and
Al Santo's gonna win.
My gosh.
Al Santo.
One hit away from the longest fight possible.
That was, one hit from the maximum. All right, well, congratulations. Shoot me an email, and I will send you the code. I think
next week, everyone's going to be that character.
That is awesome.
You should always nerf the class that wins, just so people don't repeat it.
That is the plan. So yeah, right now, let me do that right now. Before we go any further, here, let's screen share it. Let's go into the project and let's nerf that class. So go into the battle draft specs and go find the tank and just pull down that health bonus. Made it 25 instead of 50.
There you go. Our Santa's rider license expires in 6 days.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I thought he said his rider license was about to expire, so it's actually perfect. Amazing timing. All right, well, congrats again. I don't know if I have anything else to share this week other than to make a couple videos. I got a couple interesting things coming out in a community post. I'm going to do a video based on some stuff in this big ebook, and I was kind of curious what people think would be the most interesting. So I'm going to send out a poll and maybe an email about that later on today or tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. And I set up a New Year's sale today. Outside of that, I got nothing else going on other than lots of random hacking that I'm going to be doing over the week. What about you guys? Anything going on this week?
So I have a challenge that I'm not sure I'm committed to yet, but I'm going to try and do like one more step of game jamming every day just for the end of the year kind of sprint. I've been doing a lot of research trying to up my skills, so it's kind of that.
Okay, what kind of game jam things are you doing?
Well, I'm trying to expand upon that fighter thing I've shown you before. I really want to have a good feeling fighter game, so I was researching all I could on models yesterday and today, and then I'm going to pick a model, commit to it, and then animate it, make some combat animations that I need. Then I'm going to try and make sure it actually manages to attack, defend, and do all that. Then I'll add a level on gameplay, and I'm going to try and use HDRP for it for the first time, which is absolute hell for me because of all the import times and all that. And I want to see if by the end of the year I can actually make something that looks like a tiny vertical slice of something that would be Devil May Cry.
Oh, okay. Right. So it's interesting that, like, as developers, we take our time off to develop games.
Yeah. So And the other thing I could have done is just try and make a Terraria 2 in a week, which is not going to happen.
What about you guys, Andrew, Dave? Anything going on this week?
We've got the New Year sale for Infinity PBR. It's still going on in the asset store, and so the link there is all the Infinity PBR stuff. There's 90 packs. It's the coupon, and the big thing is the coupon expires. The sale doesn't expire, I think, until January, but there's a coupon if you want to give a little extra discount that expires at the end of the year. So that's the big thing there. And other than that, I'm just working on updating all my stuff. I have a new goal to update everything to 2020 LTS as the new baseline, and update a bunch of the shared scripts and random small scripts I've made in the past years. Update those and whatnot.
All right, and that's for all of your asset packs.
Yeah, I don't think they're all. Maybe they're all in there. I say yes to everything that I get invited to. So there's 90, which is a lot, but that includes all the bundles that are 30% off, all the individual ones 50% off.
The low poly characters that we need for our game.
Yep, the bundle is 30% off. So, and it's going to have 2 more characters that I think I need to get to that are almost ready. So if you're going to go for the low poly, you should get the bundle because it's $70, and there's going to be 2 more characters added. And I'm pretty sure I just need to check to the latest update that they're almost ready. So.
There's a lot of them here. And then the code is Hello 2022.
Yeah, it's at the top of the asset store. I think they show it.
Yeah, it's right at the very top on the banner.
Yeah, I missed that the first time I ordered something when it was up.
Yeah, me too.
Ooh, you play as a bat. Who wants to be a bat?
They literally put it at the top so it's the easiest to see.
I know.
Yeah. Color shifter extension. Yeah, we got to get these guys in, Andrew. Get them all set up. It's actually, the project's made to be pretty easy to set them up, so we'll have to go through that. Maybe we'll do that live on a stream together.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
Swap out the characters. And Dave, you got anything going on this week?
Yeah, so I posted a link there. Well, no. Yes and no. I do have stuff going on. So that video playing there is the last video that I put up, last tutorial I put up on having arguments with Unity. So putting in command line arguments with Unity. That was the last tutorial. This week, I'm planning on trying to get either the simulator or some other hardware stuff put up on the channel to show. But I have to obviously finish up all the company taxes for all my companies, etc. this week, which takes so much time, and finish off putting through all the invoices and stuff. So we'll see how far I get with that. Lots of boring business stuff.
Nice. Well, maybe this week or next week we can get together and shoot something.
Yeah. Nick wants to meet up as well, so I'll give him a call. Vimlock.
Yeah, that'd be great. Did you get those Vimlark hoodies, by the way? I sent you the codes.
I haven't done it yet. I know. I forgot. You messaged me when everything else was going off, and I forgot to sort of.
I wear those all the time, and I constantly, like every time I wear those, I get compliments like, "Oh, I love your hoodie. Oh, that thing's so cool. Oh, that's so good." Like just wearing the Vimlark hoodies. They're the only ones people ever say anything about. They freaking love them for some reason.
Everybody loves his character. I mean, I fell in love with it, and that's the reason I said I'd help him make that game, Monkeys with Guns, and finish it off. Which there are plenty of videos on the channel as well if people are really into Monkeys with Guns. But yeah, I will. I'll get something new up. I want to put too much tutorials up. I've got lots of tutorials in the backgrounds as well. There's like 4 uploaded that I haven't released yet, and yeah, too many. Well, there's so many tutorials to do. It's actually a gold mine. I just keep pumping out tutorials. They only take like 4 hours to make, but I've got lots of other stuff to do. So
yeah, I think for anybody who wants to make stuff, like thinking about making videos, like you can make it. There's a ton of stuff out there. Whatever you're thinking of doing or done or just worked on today, like you make that into a tutorial, and there are probably people that will be interested and find it, and just keep doing that, and eventually it just turns into a YouTube channel. It's really weird, but definitely.
Or you just have a friend that every time he sees you, he pokes you to make a YouTube channel. That seems to work as well. Yeah, you've done a good job there, Jason.
I do that to all the people I think can
never surrender, even if I'm alone.
You will one day. It takes a little bit of wearing and beating. and doing this for many, many years.
You know, I used to have a video on my channel before. It was about a mod.
Modding. People love modding.
Yeah, well, back when I was at school, I decided to make a mod for Fallout New Vegas, and in that game, you had the bots where it would stop the time and let you choose where you'd. But I really, really hated how it broke the flow of gameplay, because you could like take your entire day just deciding who you want to shoot and where. And I'm like, God damn it, just let me aim for the right part and just keep moving. So I made a whole separate VATS-like system that will just snap you to the best body part closest to the mouse. Strong aim assist, cost you SP, and had a toggle and all that. And I even made it highlight the enemy and have options. And it was really, really complex. There was no system for it, so I had to hack it around equipping an invisible item that added stats that made certain things happen, and ran a script because you couldn't just run a wild script on the player at any time back then without some massive extensions.
Dude, that's crazy. Yeah, that like hacking my games was one of the first things that made me want to code and made me really get into code. Like figuring out how to hack and cheating them, setting up bots, and all kinds of other things was just, it's like that fun challenge that you've got a goal and a target in mind, and then you're able to write some code and suddenly do the thing. It's a lot of fun, and that really was one of the main things that I think drove me to learn how to code back in the old days. Just being able to do these kinds of things in the game. So that's freaking cool. We'll have to talk about that sometime. It'd be like a fun episode. Talk about hacking, cheating, and all the other stuff that comes along with it. Writing bots and writing scripts to aimbot and all the other stuff, and why it's fun to do, even though it's not fun to play against people that are doing it.
Yeah, I mean, when you have to play against something that you know you can't win.
Yeah. All right, guys. Any last words before we head out? Other than don't
Happy
forget
New Year.
to like, subscribe, and share. Happy New Year. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. All the fun stuff. Anything else?
Be healthy. Have a great, fantastic time, and make sure to be the best person in the upcoming 60. Yeah.
That sounds like a good idea to me. Andrew?
Happy New Year, and see you next year.
All right. Well, Dave, you got something on your mouth?
We could be really dark and say, welcome to 2020 part 2.
I mean,
this is part 3.
2021 was worse for me than 2020, so I'm not looking forward to 2022. I'm hoping for a change in trajectory there. So I think
2020 part 2.
Yes.
Is this part 3? We had 2020.
Yeah, that index 0.
2022.
This is
It's 2022. It's 2020 part 2.
Oh, no.
You sure it's not 2020? It's not the
I mean, we're
third one
programmers
I'm
here.
not-
Indexes.
next year. I don't think 2020
Index started at
is
0.
coming in for another year or so. An upgrade on the Unity.
That was the prequel. 0 was the prequel.
All right, guys. Well, thanks again, and we'll see you all next week. Hit all the buttons, and goodbye.